Okay, so now that the camera's running, it's 7:07, we'd like to get the meeting started. Apologize for the late start. Thank you all for coming. It's great to see so many people here. Before we get started with the public comment section, I'd like to ask the board's agreement to change the agenda just a little bit, which is after the STAR presentation, which is the first thing after the public comment. We have Eric Tomsky here from the SEI to talk about the capital budget, and I'd like to move that right after the STAR presentation. If that's agreeable?
Sure.
Okay, so we can do that.
Thanks.
And this is the first meeting of the month is a business meeting. This is more of a discussion type meeting about issues and topics that we like to discuss about the school. And so I guess we'll open the floor for public discussion. We have two people at time.
Yes, Jennifer Field.
Hi, my name is Jennifer Field, and I just wanted to clarify something. I see under old business that there are a few things on here that I had asked about earlier, and I just wanted to clarify one thing for when you do have your discussion later, because I know that's not our time to speak, is there was something on here about extracurricular transportation costs, and I just wanted to clarify that band and music and orchestra and handbell and our studio art programs and all of that, those are not extracurricular activities, those are classes. And I know that some classes have been charged for transportation to take their students on a field trip. And that's something besides extracurricular. I still don't think extracurricular should be charged, because there's still a group that is supervised by faculty in the school, that, such as SAD or the student council or the history club or NADA or anything like that, or varsity club. Those are extracurriculars that are still sponsored by the school. And I think that the school should be responsible for the transportation, but definitely any class, whether it's an English class, an art class, a music class, those transportation costs should be absorbed by the school. Thank you.
Jean Stavinsky.
Hi, I was at Monday's safety meeting. I think it was Monday. Anyway, it was, I think, productive, which is good. And I just wanted to bring up something in particular, and that's cell phones. I'm not necessarily sure what the cell phone policy was. I kind of dug around a little bit before I came here. But particularly with teachers, and we did discuss it a little bit. I kind of took a hard edge on it. I'm going to backpedal a little bit, like Donald Trump does, and say that I think that we need to address cell phones with teachers as a tool. I think they're wonderful. I get text messages from my teachers all the time, super supportive of that, using it as a tool in the classroom. With aids on playgrounds, and I think we can identify some certain areas where perhaps it's unsafe. We have a new eyes-on protocol where we want kids to be well supervised, and cell phones, I think, prohibit that. I kind of want to get an idea of, what the board thinks and what policies are as we kind of continue. I know that safety is one of the issues on the agenda, so cell phones and where they really, how they work in school as a tool versus really just entertainment.
Okay, so thank you all. And the next thing on the agenda is the student representative, who asked that the STAR people have an opportunity to present this evening.
There's a PowerPoint.
Nobody sent it to me.
It was shared on Google. Yeah, on Google, it was shared with all of you.
Yeah, I didn't know. I wasn't.
Was it shared too?
All Ms. Gleason, you, Ms. Van.
Oh, but I wasn't looking for it, so I didn't know that it was.
There was we don't get a notification if something is shared with us, so
We were told we had to share it with you before, so it could be seen before it was shown, so we did.
Okay, thank you, we'll find it. So it'll just take a second.
So I'm gonna
Just log out. Guys, just hold on for a second and we'll get you right up.
yeah, but it won't.
It's right on the chair. So just.
But this isn't classroom, I got
No, if you look at the classroom, maybe you can check your,
We
your
got it,
email.
we got it. Thank you, yeah, I know, it's not, we have 2 Google accounts, that's the challenge.
right.
So we gotta find which one. So just scroll over to the, you gotta get up there.
Yeah, but if you send it to, what did they share it? They wouldn't have shared it with this.
Go to share.
You can open the shares with me and search, and type in star, it should come up. Star presentation.
Yeah, because you need to go to this one. So,
There it is, star.
oh, it's
There
right,
it
it's right
is.
here. No, there we go. We have 2 Google accounts. Star presenters, how would we know when to change the slide? What would you like to do? Would you like to say next?
Yeah, we'll just say
Say next,
Just say next.
thumbs up, how would you like to do that? Thumbs up, all right. Okay, we're gonna get the presentation started for you, then just give us a thumbs up and we'll advance the slide. Thanks, everybody. There it goes. There we go, okay.
All right. Hi.
Thanks for your patience.
Hi. We're all members of STAR, which is Student Teacher Activity Rally, and we are all seniors, so we are STAR team captains. And yeah, we're going to say our names, and then we have a presentation about STAR. Okay, so I'm Maddie Elliott. Hi.
Hi, I'm Danielle Monk, and clearly nobody here knows me.
I'm Jocelyn Hammond. Everyone knows me.
I'm Brady Sickler.
I'm Sydney Weingart.
I'm Ben Fields.
So STAR basically includes the teachers, the other faculty, and the students, obviously. So the objective of STAR is to not only encourage students to grow academically, but I guess mentally as well. We'd like to encourage our students to aspire to be real role models, leaders, and basically just good citizens. So each year we have a new theme, and as you can see by my shirt, this year's theme is what you think about, you bring about. And the theme is basically the driving force for all the activities that we hold throughout the year. Oh, okay. So the way STAR first started out, for us at least, was when we were in 9th grade. So we've had it all the way through high school. And so the way it starts out for us and for other students was on the first day of school. And so the first day of school, since we were 9th graders, we come in, we meet with our teams, we get assigned a color. I'm purple, Jocelyn's yellow. And we
get into our groups and we sign up for different activities and we talk about different things and we talk about our theme for the year. And then we spread out and we do, we each compete in different games and activities, and it's really fun. And it's a very laid-back first day, and it's a really nice way to start the school year. And it's nice that, my STAR team, I didn't have any friends on it, I didn't know anyone, but by the end of the year, well, the middle of the year this year, I actually know quite a few people, so it's good to bring people together.
So freshman year, the first theme of STAR was Don't Ring the Bell. It's to encourage students and staff not to give up, so kind of don't throw in the towel, just keep striving, even though when times get tough, just keep going.
Um, 2 years ago, Don't Just Survive, Thrive. This was kind of a popular one because it made you think, I can do this too, and I'm going to thrive through it.
Last year's theme was Stay Humble, Work Hard, and Be Kind. This is to help students think less of yourself, but to think of yourself. Whoa.
Not.
Well, oh, didn't mean to think less of yourself, but to think of yourself less, but thoughtful to yourself and others. Am I reading that wrong? Okay, sorry.
To be kind.
Yeah, that too. And to work hard also.
And this year was kind of what Cindy talked about, what you think about, you bring about. Encourages channeling positive thinking, and with having your own word is what we had as well, which will be brought up shortly.
Canajoharie's high school STAR initiative continues to flourish with this monthly activities. Each new activity brings something new, like Benny Mardona's. That was a huge hit in our school, and I know Brady especially had.
Yeah. Can we talk about?
Wait, wait till it gets to that one.
But I know each student, I've talked to one of them, and each one has had a lot of fun with each activity that we've done, and I really think it helps.
Ben, can you speak a little louder?
Yeah, no problem. I really think it helps build morale in the school, and really helps kids who, let's say, maybe don't socialize with others as often. I really think it helps them get a bit more motivated. It helps them get out of their comfort zone. Yeah.
Yeah, and it bridges the gap between 9th graders and 12th graders and everyone in between, I found. Like, you make friendships in between all the grades. There you go.
Sure. So we have like monthly activities that we do, or try to do at least monthly. This could be everything from like Student of the Month is something that's announced every month. And it's not usually the people you expect to get Student of the Month. Like, it's not like the most popular person. It's always that person who's doing like the things behind the scenes. Like, same teacher-wise. We also give out the Golden Apple Award, which is pretty much the Teacher of the Month. It's the person who's doing those little things behind the scenes that like really deserves to get credit for what they're doing. We've had a lot of things like the hashtag Food with Fallon, and this year was hashtag Fill to Feed, where we filled up the bus with food and delivered it to local food banks for the Thanksgiving season. The Ugly Sweater Contest, I know I talked about that last board meeting. Yeah. Oh, and Flame, which helped like us talk about people with disabilities in our school. It was a really great like concert. That was freshman year? Or was that sophomore year? Sophomore? Okay. It was really fun. And I know that was a student like idea that was brought to the STAR committee. And then here's the fun one with guest speakers. So we've been lucky enough to get like plenty of guest speakers at our school. So
So in the 2016-17 school year, we had Benny Mardones come to our school.
Which is, he's really the one that like really stuck in my heart, at least I know.
Yeah.
If you don't know the story behind me and Benny Mardones, it's pretty much that this guy inspired me so much, and I decided for my computer science internship final project that I was going to recreate his Into the Night music video, which was his like big hit song. So I recreated the video, I sent it to him, he loved it. It's, I think, one of my best things I've ever made. It was really like an inspiring thing to make. I know Maddie helped with it, AJ Sullivan helped with it, Mr. Bornder helped with it. And pretty much what ended up happening, long story short, is we got to meet Benny Mardones at his concert in December. We got to go backstage and chill out with Benny for like a good 15 minutes.
Yeah.
That was pretty fun.
Yeah, so participating in STAR led to that. So.
Yeah.
Good deal. It was a fun time.
And then we had this year with Chad Michael Collins, a Canajoharie alumni, an actor. His speech was very nice, very inspirational, to which I thought how someone growing up around this kind of area is going out, moving out of here and becoming something bigger than what happens around here.
Yeah, and we've had many other speakers as well, but that's just a few.
Team building. My STAR team, especially, I think, has definitely grown together as a team, and last year, Stay Humble, Work Hard, and Be Kind, we created these presentations to what we thought could help better the school. And I think that each person on the team put a little bit of input into it, and we helped create something that we thought would help better the school. And I know that each year I meet someone new on my new STAR team. My freshman year, I knew almost nobody except for my small group of friends, and a lot of the upperclassmen reached out to me and helped me boost my self-esteem. I had a lot of fun freshman through senior year, and this year I think I got the opportunity to reach out and help some of the other underclassmen get more motivated.
And I think especially as honors students, we're kind of all with the same group every year, so it's nice to go out and meet other students and hear their input, because we're kind of like, we're all in the same activities, you know, we're used to each other, we all have like the same ideas basically. So it's nice to learn from other students especially that have different interests, and yeah.
So the intent bracelets, there is a video there as well. It's these little washers that we had in the beginning of the year that we filled out a paper and we had to get a word put on them that means something to yourself. So for example, my word is determination. I picked this word because when I was in 7th grade, I found out that I wanted to become a teacher, and I was sitting in math class one day and I was just watching my math teacher. I just loved the way he connected with the students, how fun he made the class, and I know personally I was terrible at math, and he just made me realize that I want to become a teacher, and I am determined to become a history teacher after I graduate.
I'm going to share my word too. I don't have my bracelet on today, but my word is blessed, because my life has been a roller coaster, and I was fortunate to have a beautiful mother that's crying right now, and a wonderful father and beautiful sister that have given me the strength to keep going and graduate this year. And if you have not gotten a word, we would like to get a word. And my mom has, you have one? You have one? My mom has made like over 300 different words. Do you have more papers? Yeah. And for every student, and she did it for Chad, Michael,
And
Collins,
teachers.
and
All
teachers.
teachers and students. She touched every single one of those. Who needs one? I'll take that one. All right. I'm sorry.
No problem.
I'll share mine.
No
So
worries for
I-
you, Scott.
We've got one for you.
I guess I kind of
Just give
cheated
you-
with
just give-
I guess I kind of cheated with my word a little bit because I did 2 words. My words were One Vision, which is ironically a Queen song, but it also, the reason I did it is because I want to go into the film industry. I'm going to college to become, somebody who works with film, edits film, directs film. I've been told a lot, why are you doing that? You better have a backup plan. You're never going to be able to make it. And I've been lucky enough to have a family that really supports that and friends that have volunteered their time to be in my videos and help me make my dream come true.
Yeah. And we just kind of discussed about our words as well. And Miss B's art class, and Mrs. Eggleston's actually did too, had students create their own drawing of their words and decorate it, and we have them hanging in the hallways, which is really nice because you get to see everyone's words besides on their bracelets. And then,
Go ahead.
if you click that, it shows the results we had with a survey. We asked our senior class.
Oh, they're gonna
Yeah,
be
so
Oh, okay. It was a group, and that's our data. So we would like for you to see our data. We took and surveyed all of our seniors because they are all the way through. And one of the, if you were to see it, when they said it brought them out of their comfort zone, well, research shows how do you learn? You stop learning if you don't get out of your comfort zone. And that was like 70% of the kids said STAR brought them out of their comfort zone. So we know that they were learning. And then there were comments from other kids, like some of the kids made comments that I would have never known so-and-so had I not been in STAR because we're not in the same grade, we don't have lunch together, we don't have the same classes. And just all the varieties, like what did they like best of STAR? The list, there's like no one that just kind of stood out. So all of us did a great job reaching every aspect of every kid's interest and strength and weakness to get them out there. So we only surveyed the seniors, but I'm assuming if you could go through everybody. And we did data every year, words, what's one word that describes STAR, creative, positive, awesome, fun, it just goes on to show that they've made the connections with not only each other, but with all of the staff and faculty that we have. I don't know if there's anything
You did great.
else about it. They shared some of their words, but some of the stories, and they have now shared with each other. It was one commonality that we all had. What's your work? What's your work? And a lot of people want to share their story from the first day of school. When if you ask kids, they'll tell you their story, and they've been through a lot, and they keep pushing through. And what you think about, you bring about. I appreciate all of them, and even teachers say we have learned from them as much as we thought we were teaching. At night I look at it, and when I get up in the morning, it's the first thing I see. So truly this year has really touched me, but every year there seems to be something that continues. So thank you for allowing us. If there's any questions about it, feel free, they might be able to answer it. If not, there's several teachers here that could also answer it.
Carolyn, if you get us the
We get
PDF,
permission?
if you get us a PDF, we can,
Okay,
we'll
yeah.
get it out to the board tomorrow. So
Okay,
if you can get
it's
us
on
this-
Google, I'll just share it with you.
Beautiful, thank you.
Okay.
And then we'll send it out to the board tomorrow so they can have the full survey, okay?
Okay.
Thank you.
Any questions?
I just wanted to say one more thing before we end here. I've heard rumors through multiple students that possibly STAR wouldn't be continuing after this year. Star is like, I was thinking about this before I came in here. Star is kind of like a car. You think of the body and the engine is like the students, and Star is the gas. Without gas, you have no way to power your car. I remember coming into senior year, first day, I was so excited. I am not a morning person. I was screaming at 7:30 in the morning, trying to get freshmen involved with all the activities. Just Star is one of those amazing things I found to have had during my high school career, and especially the game show that we hold in February. It's like one of those things that kids just look forward to when the new year hits for Marcus absent and Dean tension. But it's just one of those great things that, you know, if we didn't have it, personally, I think it'd be kind of bland a little bit, just a little bit boring.
Don't sit down yet. We have maybe some questions.
So what would you change about STAR?
Just the activities, really. Like, add more fun games into it.
New activities every year. You know, the theme changes every year, so that's a good way. New activities, but like the overall message of STAR, I don't think needs to be changed.
Yeah, I think our overall point is that we just want STAR to continue to the same capacity because it's been such a positive thing for all of us.
And honestly, as STAR has grown, student participation has grown, and people have really come out of their shell. And like, I know I'm like a really shy person, but I get really pumped on STAR Day. So.
Anyone else? I have first a statement and then a question. The statement is, I don't know where that rumor started, but it's the first time I've heard it, that STAR is not going to continue. So I would just, I would not be concerned about it because it's just a rumor. The question I have is, these phrases that you come up with for each year, the theme for each year, how do those, where do those come from?
Well, one year was actually, I think it was 2 years. 2 years have come from students, really. Students have like thought about it and brought it to Miss Evans and Miss Hammonds, and they were like, I think this is a positive, I think should be a theme, and it stuck with the committee too, and it just came about.
The Tim McGraw song was Megan Courtwright. She brought it to our attention. Don't Just Survive, Thrive with Jessica Hoyt. Yeah, and she even helped design the lettering, how the survive goes in with the T of thrive. So
the first year was the teachers. It was Don't Just Survive, Thrive. It was actually Don't Ring the Bell. I think Phil Hornder was the naval Navy SEAL speech. It was good. It was about just don't give up.
And we were at the sectional soccer game, and the kids started saying, shouting, "Don't ring the bell," because we were behind, and that just kind of.
And we brought the banner too.
Yeah.
What is the participation rate?
When it first started, it wasn't a lot. STAR. On another topic there. But it's actually gone up to like 80%, 85%. It's just kids are so shy, especially the younger classes, because they're like, oh, it's my first day, I'm kind of nervous. But like, when the older class can bring them up there and like, come on, we got this, let's go do this for our team, then it brings up the rate too.
You're always going to have 2, 3 kids who really are just going to say no. But I think, like how Jocelyn said, the upperclassmen can show, don't be afraid about embarrassing yourself. It's okay to embarrass yourself. I do it with the lip sync battle. I love the lip sync battle. But since freshman year to senior year, I've seen a lot of more participation with STAR. It
Very
increases every
powerful,
year.
the first day, freshman gets up there all alone, to be introduced to, the only thing she asks is for backup dancers. And 95% of the student body rushed up. Didn't know her, she was a freshman getting up there to sing the lip sync battle all on her own. And I mean, tears, to talk about tears. Yeah, pretty powerful. These kids didn't know what song she was gonna sing, didn't matter, they were up there to support her. So, it was awesome.
And personally, I'm a pretty shy person. So, and I actually did the worm eating contest, and I won champ right there. And I had pudding all over my face. Everyone was laughing, and it was a great time. And it was really a way for me to, get out of my comfort zone and have some fun. I was actually on the school website. It's alright.
I know I'm the photographer of the day usually. Like this year for Star, I ran the school's Instagram for a day. Like I did a complete takeover of the school's Instagram, and I know that got a lot of people to follow the school's Instagram, and it made people feel like they were really showing something for the school, and it was really cool for me to get to see all the different things that I maybe wouldn't have got to see before if I wasn't doing that. It's very fun.
We had a state trooper stop the first day because he was coming back from Fort Plains for opening day. And he pulls through and he comes over and he says, I had to stop. I've never seen a school with 2 grills out front on the first day. Mrs. Sunderland and I were grilling. I said, get in there, and he went and watched the bots, the kids program, the volleyball and the volleyball, and then worm eating and just everything. So pretty successful.
I have one more question. We talked a lot about the effect of STAR and the relationship between students. I was wondering what was the effect of, has been the effect of STAR on the relationship between students and teachers and staff?
I could definitely talk about this one. Me
I would have never met Danielle if she
Yeah,
wasn't.
we're good pals now, me and Mr. Carey.
There's a certain segment of the student population that I don't see, and so through STAR I've met a lot more students, and Danielle was one, and so I think I'm a better person because I know Danielle, and that would have never happened.
I'm a way better person because I know Mr. Carey. How can you not
So,
see this legend?
yeah, for me, I definitely meet more students, and I know that for other teachers who may teach, they teach mostly juniors or they teach mostly seniors, and now they have freshmen and sophomores on their STAR team, and they get to know them that way. And it really helps when you're standing in the hallway and you know everybody's name. I mean, that's what makes my day. Everyone that comes by. So.
I'll say for on the first day of senior year this year, I didn't sign up for a event in the afternoon. I had nothing to do, so I was walking around to see if a teacher was open in their classroom, and Miss Lowry had her door open, and she was in there, and she got new desks this year, and I had her as my trigonometry teacher, and we had a good friendship, I would say. She'd always help me with my homework, and first day of STAR, I walked in and I was helping her put her desk together, and we just started talking and talking more and learning more about each other, and I think Miss Lowry and I's relationship has grown to a better friendship than what it has been.
I was just wondering, I can understand that your teams stay the same throughout the year, but I didn't understand if, like, the yellow team, does it stay the same through your?
Well, actually, my freshman year, I was on the orange team, and I was on there for 2 years, and then I switched to the yellow team. They like to mix them up, so we meet new people.
So freshman and sophomore year, for us, we were on the same team, and then junior and senior year, we were on different teams. So freshman and sophomore, I was on gray. Junior, senior, I was on white.
So did you say you were captains?
We're captains.
Yes,
So
all of us are captains.
What extra responsibilities do you have to do?
We help with the activities, so like we kind of like take charge a little bit, make sure, you know, we win.
Try to help kids get involved,
Yeah,
help
really
them get out of their
people
comfort zone.
motivated.
Thank you.
Okay, well, on behalf of the board, I just want to thank you for your presentation and for all that you do at Star Leaders.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Okay, so the next point on the agenda will be the update on the Apple project.
That's a tough act to follow.
Yeah.
But I think we can take the what you think about, you bring about, and that's really what we're doing here. Does everybody have a schedule? So the schedule lays out a couple of things. It introduces the idea that we've actually split the scope of the project that just got voted into existence into 2 different submissions. And it starts to talk a little bit about some future efforts as well. So we split the project into 2 two different pieces of work that go to SED for approval, so that we can have 2 different contracts that get executed in order to expedite some of the work. We think that we can get the track project done early, and we're shooting to have that done by the end of February with the design piece, so that we can get it up to SED. And SED, if you haven't heard, has implemented a new process where you can ask to have third-party reviewers do the code review on the project. And the idea, the reason that SED has implemented that program is because if you do things the normal way, it's up to a 9-month to 10-month review period. And by implementing third-party reviewers, they're hoping to shrink their overall review times down, get things less escalation in a project, so hopefully things get cheaper over time, and that's why we're trying to take advantage of that as well. So if we get the track going quickly, it's something that the community can see that they voted into existence in December, and we think and we're hoping that we can get that executed for summer 2018 construction. So what that will involve is stripping off the rubber surface from the track, infilling the ovals, the ends of the ovals that are close to the football field. They're called D zones because they look like a V if you're looking down on them, with pavement and then put rubber surface on that and create a couple field events on the outside for track and long jump. We've gone through some design review with that already. The documents are well underway. We actually started our own QA, QC, quality assurance, quality control review in the office today, and we're shooting for February 23rd to get that up to the state. The second phase is everything else that we talked about as part of the initial project that got voted in December.
Excuse me.
So, yeah.
Could you just indicate the bidding consequences of when this thing is approved?
Yeah, so in order to execute the project in the summer, and have the construction happen in the summer of 18, you'll see number 3 under proposed phase 1A project, that the drop dead date for us to hear back from SED is May 30th. If we don't hear by May 30th, then the construction for that project will have to go into the summer of 2019. There's just not enough time to get the long lead items and the whole process of bidding and getting construction underway to have things happen in the summer of 2018. So the third-party review will help us with that. But there's still a chance that it could slip. Bidding, we've got plenty of bid time in there, and we feel that we've got an adequate construction period to be done by the end of the summer. But that said, tracks especially are weather dependent. So if it rains all summer long, then we're going to have to come up with a contingency plan. And that contingency is what we'd like to ask you to do is try and schedule your home games for later on in the season if possible, so that we have a little bit of extra, a couple weeks into September if we have to, in order to take over that extra time. So we do have that. Any other questions on phase 1A, or did I answer your question, Mark? Okay.
I have a question on phase 1.
Yeah.
Has that gone to the public for any viewing?
No, but we do have some public comment periods.
So when is that happening if it's going to the state in February?
So we'll have to ask the comments after it's up to the state, but we can make adjustments to that because the state's looking at code review items, and if there's anything that has to change. Okay.
And you might just want to mention the coaches were involved, so
Yep,
Coach
I know,
Miller.
but that's still not the.
Yeah, no, I know, just so you know that was Coach, yeah, there's a process we're following for all of it.
Anything else?
I would just like to see that on the schedule.
It is on the schedule.
I didn't see. So.
We've got March 8th, it actually shows up under phase 1B.
Yeah, phase 1B, sorry.
Yep. 1B, and then also 2A items on phase 1B. We'll make sure we put the track up for discussion at March 8th. But because the timeline's so quick, we have to get it up to SED soon. So that brings us to phase 1B. Everybody's okay? Schematic design's underway. We've started our meetings with administration and some of the staff to talk about the details of the project, like how are we going to execute replacement of door hardware, how are we going to handle our steam conversion to hot water over East Hill, and that kind of detail. Our plan now is we're going through putting together our understanding of what we think you want out of the project. We'll come back and review that with staff and administration to make sure. We'll talk about main offices at some point sooner than later. So that we can submit the project to the state, the bigger project, mid-May of this year. And because the projects that involve electrical, mechanical, and plumbing are the ones that take 9 to 10 months of review, we're expecting to receive SED approval late winter, early spring next year. And then construction will start in the summer. So it's not different from what we've talked about in the past. We've moved up the schedule a couple of weeks, hoping that the team can help compress the schedule even further, and that will bring our bidding dates closer to the start of the year. And anytime you can bid closer to the start of the year, you're better off because people have to look up all the work. Any particular questions about 1B?
It seems to me, when we had the first presentation, I asked about the design, particularly for the vestibule at the middle school. And the answer was, well, there'll be plenty of time to feedback and decide what that design is. But it seems like the way we're doing this is, that's pretty much after the fact. Because there's 15 days between public information session and your internal design being completed.
So the schematic design internal deadline is for us to get our understanding of what the issues are in front of the district. And then we're meeting public information night on March 8th. We'll take whatever comments come out of that meeting, incorporate them into the design development set. In design development, we take the concepts that you put together for consumption and digestion and tweak them to make them more real and to incorporate any changes that need to happen from the comment period. Then we're going to come back for comments again on March 23rd. Tentatively March 23rd, that's a Friday, so. We'll figure it out.
Is the board meeting 22nd? Yeah. It's the 22nd.
But there's still time after that, Scott, because we're not going to the state until May.
Would there be time between the 8th and the 20, whatever, of March?
Yep.
To show us changes that might have been made?
Absolutely,
in the
yeah.
design? I mean, you'll.
Yeah, and that's our typical process. It's an iterative process. We'll come up with a concept, the staff and administration will comment on it, we'll change it, and then same thing will happen with the public. If there's any public comments, we'll incorporate those changes, assuming that everybody blesses it. But it's more of a representative program, a republic as opposed to democracy. You know, we'll take the ideas and then there's a chain of command that we have to flow through to make sure that we hit the budget and things get done the way the district's anticipated. Primary importance is making sure we've got the schedule and the budget going. And we have that 9 months. If for some reason we're off track, we can bring things back in line. Okay. Last part, future. Right now, there's a request for proposal or an RFP that's out to energy service companies. They're called ESCOs. Energy service companies are, we've talked a little bit about energy performance contracts in the past. And an energy performance contract is a different way to procure work for municipalities. And the school district is one of the municipalities that can take advantage of that program. It's a municipal lease agreement is the technical term that allows school districts or cities or counties to take advantage of energy performance contracts with ESCOs. There's two approaches to funding that you can go with an EPC or energy performance contract. One is to contract directly with the ESCO. There's no
Can you just
vote.
say
Yep.
what the ESCO stands for?
Energy service company. Sorry, we have a lot of acronyms here. So a school district can contract directly with an ESCO, energy service company. No votes required. If the district decides that they want to vote on the project, then there's an additional 10% building aid that flows towards the revenue side of the project. And it actually helps expand the amount of work that you can undertake. But energy performance contracts are ways, I'm going to backtrack. The state recognized that if you take advantage of energy savings measures, that you can take the energy savings to help pay for the project. So instead of having to do a design to build approach, they've allowed to procure through a company to allow the energy savings to pay for the project. That's why no vote was involved. The approach involves making sure that the calculations that get created to prove that the project works within the 18-year window that the state requires are provable, and the state blesses and signs off on that. That's part of what SED does for ESCO, or I'm sorry, EPC projects. In addition to that, the ESCO has to guarantee that the savings will come back to the district. If you don't see the energy savings that they promised you, then they have to write you a check to make up the difference. So there's no downside as far as the school district is concerned. There's two jumping off points that you can take. I can't remember if we talked about this before. The first one is a no-cost jumping off point. The second one potentially could cost depending on who you're working with. The first one is just request the proposal, which is where we're at right now. They do a basic walkthrough of the building, identify some ideas of what they might be able to create energy savings from, and they give you an idea of how much money that would generate in savings and what you can do for the project. Excuse me. The second part requires a more detailed study on the ESCO's part, and that's why some people request money at that point. We'll know whether or not any of the people that submit proposals will be asking for money for the second part of the stage. You can still jump off at that point, but depending on the company's approach, we'll have to decide whether or not we want to undertake the money part of it. So that's the way it works. It's an easy approach to energy savings, and it helps accomplish some work that you may not have cash for right now, which is why we're considering the approach. And then there's a whole schedule associated with that. Basically, the schedule involves receiving the proposals on February 15th, interviewing finalists on the 22nd, and then presenting what we found in those interviews to the board on March 8th. Any questions?
I'm not on the ESCO.
Okay.
No general questions. I assume the fitness center is in 1B?
The center's not part of this project.
It's not.
No, we talked about putting that into the second phase of construction.
I thought the track was in that later phase too. That's why I was not sure if you pulled it.
Because the track doesn't require that 9-month review, it's an architecture-only review. That's why we can try and get it done in the summer of 18, and that's why it got moved up to phase 1A. So the track and all the other stuff was originally one big project, and we decided let's try and split it.
Anything else?
So things are moving according to schedule. I feel like we've got some good decisions made already. Need more to go, but we're on track.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Okay, the next point on the agenda is policy. This was empty when I looked at it this morning.
The first one I'll review is 5630, the smoking tobacco use. Probably the biggest thing or addition was the electronic cigarettes or e-cigs, and as that being not acceptable on school grounds or being acceptable at school activities. The other thing that we would like to include is off-school grounds. The e-cigarettes were included, but we also wanted to include any school employee because, I mean, that's an assumed thing, but we wanted to make sure we included that in the policy, that teachers or staff members aren't smoking at school activities, because it wasn't included. Those were really the big things. I don't know if there's anything else that we really needed to add or discuss, but it was really e-cigs and the school employees not being able to smoke as well, or use tobacco. Is there anything you wanted to add, Scott?
No, we didn't. Did we get an answer back on what we're able to do?
We are, if things are off school grounds and on the property of someone else, we certainly could politely ask someone who is affiliated with our group not to smoke, but we cannot enforce that because it is on our property.
But we can enforce that for students?
Yes, for students. But for others who might be with students, other adults who might be visiting or something along those lines. But for students, yes.
What about our chaperones? No?
Yes, because there are employees on, and they're there in a school function.
Because I think those were the questions.
Yeah, those were some of the other questions. And that was I'm sorry, go ahead.
I didn't understand what you were talking about. Is that on school ground?
No, like say the prom is held somewhere.
Okay.
The policy, as I recall, please correct me if you recall it, but as I recall, the policy for off-school grounds said only students aren't supposed to partake of cigarette smoking, etc. And we didn't think that was appropriate because we know we have school-sponsored people that are going there to chaperone our students at whatever this activity is, and we thought that it was appropriate that they follow the same rules.
And these are school events and activities off.
Right.
Yeah, right, okay.
Off school grounds,
Off
correct.
school ground. Okay.
Any other questions?
Now I'll move on to the next policy, 7320. This is also related to alcohol, tobacco, drugs, and other substances. The big thing that was included, again, was the electronic cigarettes. We also discussed synthetic drugs, and I think that was another question that we had. I don't know if you got any clarification on that.
That one I haven't yet, no.
Okay. And I'm just looking at my notes. Again, those were the two biggest things, was the synthetic drugs. Also, there's a statement in here that says students are not permitted, to be under the influence. We also discussed acting if students are under the influence, so that way if a student potentially is under the influence, but it's a hard thing to verify. But we thought that was an important thing. If a student is acting as if, they're under the influence, or they're bragging that they're under the influence, or talking about being under the influence, we discussed that might be an important thing to put in the policy for administrators to have some meat if they needed to offer any discipline. This is not part of the policy. I'm assuming that's under the student code of conduct, but this is in addition to, it's another safeguard. So we discussed that might be a good thing to include. So really, again, in review, it's the synthetic drugs, the e-cigarettes were included in there, and as well as students acting as if they're under the influence.
Any questions? What is a synthetic drug?
Well, it's kind of like a designer drug or something, but that was one of the things we wanted to get clarification on, that exactly what it means and are we able to, enforce it. Scott, you might be able to.
It is the current trend, and it wasn't really called out. So there's people making drugs from other substances that might not be controlled.
Any questions on that? All right. Moving Moving on then to the next policy, 7520, which is accidents and medical emergencies. We just had a few things in here that we discussed. Just a few words. One word that we wanted to maybe exchange or replace was, there was a sentence, districts are responsible to obtain first aid care. We wanted to make sure that we just use the word seek. It just seemed like a better fit. That way, if you know, somebody is hurt, we would be responsible to seek medical care for that person rather than obtain first aid. So it was just a play on words. The other thing that we discussed that was really struck out was the transporting an ill or injured student. We wanted to include the district will make all reasonable attempts to contact parents or person in parental relation when determining if emergency treatment is necessary. So it doesn't necessarily mean we have to, but we'll attempt. So for example, if there's a medical emergency, you know, the primary responsibility is getting, you know, treatment for that kid, and we'll do whatever we can to contact the parent. Doesn't mean we're going to contact the parent and then wait for medical emergency or medical as mentioned. And then the other thing was insurance. We talked about the insurance. If a student does get hurt, the school would act as the secondary insurer. So that means if their primary insurance would cover, you know, I'll just say hypothetically 80% of the bill, we would be responsible for the other 20%. Does that make sense? So the student or whoever got injured would be responsible for, you know, going through with the primary insurance.
I could just say that an issue came up about this school year, and apparently the school insurance will cover only, you know, they have limits in terms of their coverage, so we can't guarantee that we can make up the difference between the primary insurance and the school insurance.
No, the language doesn't guarantee that.
Okay.
That's a good point, but it doesn't guarantee.
I mean, I'd love it to make up the difference, but not, it won't necessarily do.
All it clearly states is that it's secondary.
Yeah.
And it wasn't, we weren't happy with how it was stated, so we made it more clear.
It's originally said co-insurance,
Yeah.
which it didn't prioritize.
It's ambiguous. Yeah.
As long as it doesn't make a promise to.
It does not.
Any questions or anything you need to fill in, Scott?
No, that was good.
All right. The other one we discussed was 7670. The subject is due process complaints, selection and board appointments of impartial hearing officers. And some of the things that we discussed about was to include a hyperlink about the process of the complaint. So if there's a complaint, people would, you know, if they looked at the policy, they were able to find a link or a hyperlink that they could access. We thought that filing the paperwork would be really difficult for really anybody. You don't know what the paperwork is, and we thought a hyperlink would be a good addition to that. Trying to think of anything else that was really pressing. We just
there was something where we made it district, if I remember right.
yeah, I was
Board's designee.
yeah, the board's designee on the back. It basically had the board will arrange for impartial, you know, due process, but really we're not doing that. We would designate somebody to do that, you know, whoever that might be. So we changed that wording a little bit, and there was something that was struck out that we kind of thought probably shouldn't have been struck out. The thing that was struck out that we would like to keep, it says all issues relating to a request for and conduct of an impartial due process hearing must be kept confidential by all district staff. We thought that that was important to keep in, even if somebody who's going through an impartial hearing is okay with that being public knowledge. We just felt it wasn't appropriate for staff to say, well, you know, it's open, so we'll talk about it. You know, there should be certain privacies and, you know, basically privacy that we didn't feel staff should be talking about kids and, you know, at school like that. So we felt like that should really be kept in. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Did I explain that? Does anyone have any questions on that? So those were just a few things. Really the hyperlink, keeping that confidentiality of district staff, and the designee, the board, you know, we're not going to arrange for impartial hearing, but we'll designate somebody. questions or anything you need to fill in? All right. All right, I'll move on to the last one that we discussed was 5650, which is records management. The only thing that we wanted to change in there is we wanted to strike the superintendent will retain records, because that really is unreasonable for the superintendent to, maintain records, but the district. So we wanted to just strike superintendent, replace it with the district. And I think that was the only change we had on that. And that's what we got through. We got through 5 policies and reviewed and discussed. We still have a couple more that we'll review the next time we meet.
Final questions? Next point is the Finance Committee.
So this is to review the 11th meeting, correct? What do you want us to review today?
At the last board meeting, you talked about the meeting we had before, so just a review of what we discussed earlier tonight.
Okay. So we had a finance committee prior to the board meeting. We were presented to review the budget from each school, rolled up by principal and individual, with the line item and the new format that we talked about at the last board meeting, so that we could see detail and changes from one year to the next in categories. The other thing we did is we drilled down on trying to figure out our anticipated expenses for this budget year, and we got closer to figuring that out. There's still a little bit more work to do on that, but we do believe we're getting to the bottom of figuring that out. We are clear that we will have leftover money at this point to allocate toward new initiatives for our vision, mission, etc. So there are some excess funds for us to do that with as we ponder other initiatives this year. We're not done with that analysis, so we don't have a finite number, but it is significant at this point. We believe it's going to be over 300,000 in total. So there are funds for us to work with. Those were the highlights, I think, from tonight's meeting.
Any questions? Any additions? Sure.
Oh, yeah, sorry. We did cover the governor's budget.
Yes. I have the, yeah. If you just scroll down. There it is. Oh, that's right where that mouse is.
Yeah, I'll see it. Oh, you want the other one?
We have a better one that's easier for people to see.
Oh, I put them.
It's okay.
I know, I
Did you
put
want
it
me
in
to
the
cover
wrong
that,
spot.
or did you want to cover that, or?
Yeah, please.
Why don't you?
So we got the governor's run last week, and I did some analysis looking at the run for 18-19 versus the current year. And if you look at the last column, we're going to receive, right now, according to the governor, $111,000 more in state aid than we have this year. So that's basically what we know to that.
And that's total aid across all 8 categories that are listed. So just as a thought for when the governor's budget is the first run, that becomes then a negotiation point with the legislator to determine part of the final budget, but it's the first piece we look at when we're trying to balance the revenues and the expenditures.
The other thing we had discussion about is it does look like the revised state budget that was given to us looks favorable as well, so it doesn't look like we'll have problems finishing out this year. Because as a part of this, we also got the revision for the rest of the year. And the last thing to mention is that we discussed was the transportation budget that was given to the state does not exactly, or given to us by the state, does not exactly make sense to us. And we think that that could wind up being a phantom check later, like what we've had in the past. If it comes through the way the governor's budget is proposed, which again, as Grimshaw mentioned, would go through a revision still, so that would have another, it would get changed along the way next year, as we're halfway through it. We might wind up having a $200,000 surprise check. We can't say whether it will or not. In discussing it, you know, it doesn't make sense to us that they would send us that money, but according to what the preliminary budget is, we probably would get that check. We don't believe we should count on it, because it doesn't make sense to us that they're telling us they'll give us more than what we said we would spend in the transportation category.
This has happened before.
I know.
Yes, it is.
I know.
The timing of it's always crazy.
Any questions? I just have a comment to make, a couple comments actually. One is that the Board of Regents and NISBA, the New York State School Board Association, calculated that in order to maintain programs and pay for normal increases in expenditures that currently exist, would require $1.5 billion in education aid this year, increase in education aid this year. The governor's proposed half that. That, in addition to two other factors, one of which is the fact that there's a limit now on property and income tax deductions on income taxes based on the new tax law. And there's one other thing that I'm forgetting, but anyhow, it was in my head and now it's gone. That's not unusual. But anyhow, the fact that we have already a $2 to $4 billion deficit in the budget right now, it's going to be a tough year for budgetary success. And so I think it's really going to require that we really get back on our game for advocacy and really help try to push our legislators to do the right thing by education in our state and also in our district, obviously. But I just think that it can tentatively be very daunting. And added on top of that is the fact that the federal government is not looking very favorably on public education at this point. And so there is rumors that once the budget is finally worked out at the federal level, that there may be some significant cutbacks in the Department of Education, which could also affect us adversely. So again, I think that it's really important, especially this year, given all these things that are coming together, that we really get our act together in terms of advocacy and really try to get the best that we can for the district and for all public education in New York State. So, any other questions? I'll get up my
So part of the budget workshop in the past 2 years we've done is the board has solicited some suggestions from folks who are here, folks who are present in the audience or others. I have a sheet, and let's see if I loaded that up right when it comes up. Okay, but if you please take one of those and pass it around, and here's, I'm going this way. We have some starter suggestions from the buildings.
I want to remember, maybe I put it over there.
No, I didn't.
Oh, shoot.
Oh, there it is, it is there. There we go, oh, it did come out, okay. So this is a very similar format, it's the exact format that the board has used the past couple of years. So I'm just going to go down through, and the process that you have chosen to use, so that will be up to all of you, is to take a look at some additional suggestions and then enter into a conversation with folks in the audience about any other things that might want to be added. These suggestions were just provided to me yesterday. We'll go back then and look at the cost, look at the justification, and then give any other status information. So this is the exact same form we've used for the past 2 years. So let me just share with you, in case that's small and hard to read, up on the screen what some of the additional starter suggestions are. One-to-one computing, additional IT support, additional interactive boards for teachers, increased professional development budget, additional mental health support, additional AIS teacher at the elementary level for reading and math, additional middle school social studies teacher, middle school aid for the testing center, student support, recess supervision, and class coverage, after-school busing, teacher assistants full-time in K, teacher assistants half-time in grade 1. And I put what the additional FTE is on top of what we already have. 4 sections of second grade in K1, which already has 4 sections, special education co-teacher services at each grade level, full-time middle school counselor, and computer skills classes at the middle school. So that's the starter list from the buildings. And now I'll turn it back over to the board to see if you'd like to solicit any additional ideas.
May I say something?
Yeah.
I'm a second grade teacher, there are 3 sections, so just, there's not 4 sections, K2. I just wanted to clarify that, because that's not already happening.
Correct. But that's the additional suggestion, to have 4 sections.
Yes.
Yep.
Any comments or additions at this point?
I just want to make a comment that I think we're going to talk a little bit more maybe in the future meetings with honors and AP classes. Another thing I just want to make a comment on, and maybe this is me, I may not have support on this, but I find that keyboarding skills or typing skills, however you want to say it, I think would be extremely valuable. And I don't know if that would fall under the computer skills classes or not, but I just wanted to put that out there that I know many of us who know how to type or use keyboarding is just one of the best skills I've ever learned. And anyone I talk to who knows how to type or use keyboarding, it's very valuable. So just those few comments I wanted to make.
So I would add a little bit more specificity to the one area you touched on, the AP. I think we should have free AP and college courses available to students. It's given to P-TECH students, but not the rest of our students, and I think that's inequitable. I think that we need to address librarians. I also think we need to look at, is there any assistance needed for our students to be able to continue to participate in music and arts programs? In other words, do we need to put funding towards that as our demographic shifts? Because some people might not be able to afford an instrument or fill in the blank. So those are 3 that I had on my list.
You said you included arts too, just
yes,
music arts.
art.
Perfect. Yeah, I wanted to mention that too, so thank you for saying that.
May I make a clarification of the second one, additional IT support? We were asking possibly for dedicated IT support, in-house support.
What does that mean, dedicated?
That means that you'd have a team, maybe 2 to 3 people, so that you could have one at each building available. And then for increased professional development budget, that is for in content areas.
What was the second one, sorry?
Increased professional development in content areas. Meaning that if
like
a department
a science
wants to
teacher
go,
learning science or
right,
cutting
because
edge
with all
science
the
stuff.
next generation standards coming out, we need to go. We need to have an entire group go because we all teach different levels, and so everybody needs to go to different workshops. So if we could get an entire group to go, that's what.
One of the things I would like to look at is a possible budget for outside speakers.
Along that line, we've talked about it a few times. I would really love to have us do that inspirational component where we bring in regularly people that can help be that aspirational.
Mentors?
Yeah, I don't remember what label we put on it. That's why I'm hesitating, because we've talked about it before, and I just don't remember the label that we put on it. But that's going to require some programmatic monies, I think, to make that operate.
It's not a definitive list. If anyone comes up with other suggestions, just submit them and we can do that.
And it comes back again, so we do this, the board does this a couple of times, excuse me. And then, so what we'll do is we'll fill in all these columns, come back, and we can certainly add more. So we do it a couple of times, it becomes part of the budget process, excuse me.
Just one other thing I wanted to mention, since the honors 18 things. I do have those surveys. I'm in the process of tabulating them because they're not currently tabulated, and that should be completed by next week. So I will have it in the super's office at that time, and it'll be available for people after that.
Thank you.
As well as a cover letter from Mr. Brian, who submitted that.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
I'd like to add something to the list. I know we have a .8 art teacher at the high school right now, and .8, .9, sorry. If we could have a full-time art teacher here, that would be wonderful. She spends, comes here early in the morning and stays late at night and goes to all our games. She's put in a really lot of hours here, so I'd like to see that we have her here full-time.
I'm sorry, you said she's .9 right now?
0.9.
And you'd like to make it
Yeah,
0.8?
salary.
And you'd like to make it
.8
full-time?
what?
Point
teacher
eight
is it again?
Excuse me?
What teacher is it again?
Art, yes. It's not full-time. Right. It's not full-time.
It's .8.
.8, that's what it is. Yeah.
.8 FTE to 1.0 FTE.
Yeah.
One thing I would just like to suggest is if anyone has any other ideas, that if you could submit them to your building leader, that way they can send it on to the board, and you can benefit from any other ideas that people might have.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, anything else on this right now? Okay, so moving right along, safety plan.
Okay, well, somewhere we have copies of these things. All right. I'm going to talk while I try to find the handouts for you and tell you how this was put together. So over the past year, there have been a variety of safety actions that have gone on within the district and will continue to go within the district. I'm just trying to find my paper copies right now. Around the issue of safety. The first piece is the goal, which really is to provide a safe and welcoming learning environment for all students. And that's been something we've worked on for years. So in trying to think about the best way to present the actions in a way that makes sense surrounding the goal, there are 3 groups of activities and they're clustered around things that have been primarily happening at East Hill. Then there's a set of actions that are district-wide that are going on, and then there's a set of actions at the bottom that are related to the capital project. So all those things together in this chart form are the safety actions and the things that we've been working on. Under the status, there is a code for that. The code is at the bottom. OT means it's on time, IP means it's in progress, and C means it's completed. And we also put in, I also put in a column for who's the lead on doing the work, and then any relative notes. Over the past year, there have been bits and pieces of this that have been shared. This is the compilation of everything all in one spot, so that this, although not on large paper, like some things like we put out, this is something that we can refer back to, can be updated on a regular basis. So the actions that, and I'll find these, I'm sure, some way. So some of the actions that we looked at, are the actions that are going on now, so I'm just going to go to it on my screen because my eyes aren't that good anymore to see it that far away, are to look at school security monitors as a temporary position for the end of the year. This year being evaluated. That target date is February 8th. Ms. Ward and I completed the internal interviews, and we just have to wrap that process up. 2/8 is the next board meeting. To go along with that, as part of a safety plan that we presented, or safety actions we presented last board meeting, we also want to increase the East Hill nurses clerical aid position, and that's dependent upon filling another position, but that also will be ready to go for the 8th board meeting. There's a breakfast monitor that's already in place, an additional breakfast monitor. There's been some support for student movement throughout the building. That has been completed. However, the East Hill staff and Ms. Ward continue to monitor, review, and revise those processes all together.
Assume that 2/9 is a typo.
Yeah, it should be 2/8. 9, 8, 22, 23, the days just are all one day, so sometimes they blend together. We have already ordered 4 security cameras for the north and south wings at East Hill in anticipation of the larger security camera over revision as part of the capital project. So those cameras are already ordered. We already know what needs to happen. As soon as they arrive, Mr. May and his team will install them. We anticipate that will be no later than the beginning of March. We also are looking at the door alarm capacity. Our Secure system is our system that we use for our badges. We're checking with the company from the vendor to see if we have the capacity within the exterior doors already to do one of those little alarms that would just be a little something we'd have to purchase for the door. So we're waiting to hear from the vendor on that. If not, as part of the CAP project, we are looking at interior and exterior doors, and we've had the conversations about what the different possibilities might be for exterior doors for that kind of alarm or signaling system. So Eric's working on that with us. We also have a temporary window attendant, and we also, yeah.
Would that be a local alarm or?
No, that's a local alarm. That would be within the building.
No, but I mean, it wouldn't be at the door itself, it would be somewhere else or both? Or?
No, it would be on the exterior door so that if you would try to leave the building, an alarm would sound or something would trigger at the door. Yes, thanks. And then last year we started a student education component. That will continue this year, and that should be, oh my gosh, well, we started it in 2017. That's going to continue into 2018, so that's also completed. So those were some of the actions that were very specific to East Hill and where we are with those pieces. There are some other actions then that became district. Yep, I'm sorry.
The student education component,
Yep.
What does that involve?
Ms. Ward, can you remind me with, because Mr. Schwabrow had caught what we all hope we don't catch. That was the classes that the PPS team did around students, the circles, yes, thank you. Can you just explain that? No, you can explain.
Can you just make a note to have
We'll make
Jen-
an attempt to do it when she's not, yes, when she's feeling better. Okay. All right. So anyway, that was something that we said that we would do on an annual basis. The PPS team does that in classrooms with students.
So we're gonna discuss this in the sections that you outlaid?
How would you like,
all done?
it does matter to me.
I'm thinking it's a long list, it might be better to just,
Okay.
go as.
I was too.
as we go. That's why I was interrupting.
Okay, that's
Go ahead
fine,
if
so
you
go
have-
ahead if you got some questions.
Okay. So my first question is, we've had some temporary patches in place.
Yep.
What have we learned about a permanent solution that we might think we would want to have?
And particularly, I would think this would be around the personnel pieces.
Yes.
Yes.
And like
Yeah.
maybe where
The
we put a
process.
station.
Yes,
or,
we
you
have
know,
thought about all this, yeah.
Because to me, where I would like this to be is, we get to the fall and we're to a permanent solution and we're past the temporary patch solutions,
Yeah,
right?
right, and again, there will be a modification to the permanent solution when the CAP project happens, so there's.
Absolutely,
there
from
could be
a
lot-
facilities perspective. Right.
So what, do you want me to speak to, anything you want to speak to?
I would say that I was in line with what came out of our meeting on Monday night. It was very productive. And when we asked the 4 groups to talk about what they felt was most beneficial, all 4 groups talked about the cameras. So I think the more cameras we can get in there, I know 4 are ordered, I don't know if we'll need more. But the more cameras and the updated cameras, as well as all 4 table groups did talk about the person at the window, the new monitor position, however they chose to say it, the window position or the safety monitor positions. So I think having those personnel in place and someone dedicated to the in and the out and the checking IDs and that point person will be ideal. And yes, I would think it will be permanent, even though I know right now the position is still.
So you're thinking a window and then a safety person, and the cameras and dealing with the doors will kind of give an alarming, however we want to say that.
However we put that together.
Will give us a kind of a framework for a permanent solution.
Yes, and I think those structures in place will allow us to tease out an area that we heard on Monday was an area for growth and to continue to look at was how do we balance safety with growing independence in our students so that they don't feel, people have said prison-like or that it's too strict. And also then how do we balance having parents feel welcome? Because right now there's a general sense that it's too restrictive. So how do we balance more parents in and things like that?
It was a very positive meeting.
So when we think about how some of this will play out, that one of the pieces we would like to try with these school security monitors is to actually position that person outside of the office, right in that entryway, so when you come in, that person is right there to greet you. And so that we have that piece, but we're still kind of figuring that out a little bit, the staff is figuring that out. So that person would be the person to greet, would be the person to do the ID tag system when we get it. I keep calling it Viper, it is really named Raptor. To me, they're the same thing, just so you know. If I say Viper, I mean Raptor, and it's the visitor ID system. So there's that consolidation, and then you have the other person who could help escort students, help make sure the building is safe. So that's the next iteration of this that we will evaluate and then look as, over the next couple of months, and then look at what that means in the fall as a more permanent solution.
And when you said balancing, I don't remember the word you said, but independence, I think is what you said. From what you've seen, do you have an idea of where we ought to be from an end state in that balance? In other words, right now we went to everybody has somebody with them. Do you have an idea of what you'd like that balance to be?
We've walked back a bit where there's awareness at 4 and 5, eyes on for 3, grade 3, and grade 2 is where we're now focusing on. Mrs. Murphy has a system where if they've earned an eyes on, where they don't have to be escorted, they actually have a pass that says eyes, and the children are very proud of that, and then they are escorted. But that's not Mrs. Murphy first, make sure she flags the monitor or someone so that they can see. So I think that's where we're struggling. That's not where we're struggling, that's where we're focusing to try and figure the balance.
Okay. So third would change from what we are now.
It is. Yeah. Well, third is
Or
eyes
did
on
you already?
now, but it
Okay.
has changed from where we were in December. That's
Okay,
correct.
good.
And that's really been because Stacy and the staff have continued to have discussions and meetings and work through that. So I think that's been really helpful, and that monitoring and review will continue at that level as well.
I think also it was made clear Monday, from what Stacy said and so forth, that as the technology is in place in terms of the door buzzers and so forth, that'll enable more steps to be taken in the direction of independence and welcoming and so forth.
Yes, absolutely.
Anything else on the East Hill School?
So there are also some district.
About that. It's
Go
just a quick, you said the door alarm, if we can't purchase that through the system that we already have, then it goes on to the action down at the bottom. So if they don't have one that we can buy through the company that we're already with, then we have to wait 1.5 years for that. I'm just asking because I have a 2nd grader and I don't want him to hold somebody's hand and walk down the hall every time he has to go get a box of tissues or he needs a Band-Aid. It's just, this is my son that I have had to work him up to, you can go upstairs and go to the bathroom in our own house, honey. And he's got there, and now I feel like he's taking a step back at school too, because now he's not there. He doesn't have the confidence to say, yeah, I can do it. So I'm just wondering if there's a different option.
There may be.
Okay.
So right now, that's where our thinking is. However, we do have our architect looking at that. So if there are other options, we would bring those back to the board and discuss those as updates in the safety plan. Thanks.
Also, I'd just like to indicate we're hoping to have a regular series of meetings with teachers and parents to discuss these issues so that other ideas could be explored if, what we're hoping for doesn't
Great. That's great. Monday was great. Thank you.
So in terms of school-wide action or school district action, there's a variety of things. We all have our Canajoharie schools lanyards so that students can easily identify who staff are in the building. We have been using our school messenger as a communication protocol for quicker communication because that's just the way of the world. You have to try and stay ahead of things as best you can or respond as quickly as you can. We have our visitor badge system that's on, we are ready to go with that. That's going to be part of our Santa Barbara grant money as soon as we get the money. We have a volunteer application. This has been a little bit of a process because we've been going back and forth on an administrative level in terms of looking at how much information, what's the information look like, what's it legal for us to ask, how does the whole process work. So right now we're in the stage where we're just verifying the information with our legal team, so that we make sure we can do that appropriately. I also put in 2 other things that are district, but I consider them under safety, and they're things we want to capture as well, although they may not be directly connected to some of the other things we've talked about, and that is the water-lead remediation. We're working on that, and you had asked Mr. May to come back on February 8th because we've done the 2nd round of tests to see all the things we've cleaned up. So that's ongoing and in progress. And then the other piece that's connected to some longer term kind of ideas, which is Mark was talking about, a regular series of meetings, is really to establish building safety committees that would be parents, staff, teachers, so that we can have regular ongoing conversations in all the buildings about safety or other concerns. And that's something we're looking at towards the spring. I'm stopping in that section now for questions.
Any questions, comments?
Can I, as a parent,
Go ahead.
I'm sorry, because I brought this up a couple of times, the question about the high school secondary door, not the entrance, where kids could just walk in the morning. And I was told those doors have to stay open. Is there a monitor there now, like we have in our school, in the elementary school we have an adult? I was told that they have to stay open because that the gym is there.
Because what?
Because of
Front door's open because the gym's open.
But when the kids, I just started, like, I'm dropping my kid off and and I'm thinking, geez, anybody could just walk in here.
Yeah.
So are there ever is that in the plan that there will ever be?
There's a few things that have been talked about and being considered. One is that possibly fitness center members could get things that would open a locked door that would have a time constraint on it so that It would stop at 7:30. When the fitness center closes, they could no longer get in. Another possibility is to have a morning monitor, just to a greeter, I would call it, just to see who's coming in and, just be sure that everyone who's coming in is people who should be coming in.
And at that other door, the parking lot door?
I'm sorry.
The parking lot door?
Oh, we haven't talked about that.
That's the one that concerns me the most.
That's the faculty entrance, that's locked.
No, the one where the art, where the art is.
It's right here. It locks and
It should be locked.
And they don't lock
No.
them.
No, is it locked in the morning?
No.
So
No, the
students
kids
come in
still-
from the student entrance, from the student parking lot in that way. Okay, so we'll have to check with Gary on the hours.
All right, so we'll have to look at that because that certainly is an
I
issue.
mean, if you had a monitor there, I think it would be great. I think it's great for the kids to be able to walk in that side door and not have to walk all the way to the front. But just,
Okay, well, I wasn't aware of that, so thank you. Okay, any
Yeah,
other?
that's the list.
Go ahead.
So, the volunteer application, I don't know how we deal with the front door of the high school, what that would have to be.
Yeah, we'll add that to the list.
Because in my opinion, if we go back how all this started, for people that are coming to our school regularly, we need to vet them to make sure they're safe to be in our school. Which says to me that a volunteer, we want people to volunteer. So a volunteer would have to be kind of an application process that they authorize us to do certain background checks on them. That's gonna get complicated if people visiting the fitness center have access to our school to walk in with our children any time of the day.
No. The badge would only allow them until 7:30 in the morning. And then it would no longer work. We can program it that way.
All right. So
I
that's
mean, it's
what.
just an idea.
Right, no, I know. But as we sort that out, my expectation is that we have that type of level of clarity on who's coming into and screening of the people coming in on a regular basis. too.
Correct, that's the volunteer application
Right.
piece, yes.
So the legal review of that, where are we in that concept?
It's just to see how much of a background check can we really do. So it's that idea of what can we really ask for? And we've seen, we've looked at other models, we've looked at what other schools do, so we're just trying to get some clarification on that piece.
Because the people are giving us authorization.
Correct. But we like to ask our legal representative.
Right. No, I understand that,
Yeah,
but
to run the-
it would seem to me that we ought to think about what we require.
Right.
Sex offender, et cetera,
Right, right.
violent crimes, whatever we put on that list.
Right.
And then position that as a document of an application that the person would sign authorizing for
Correct.
said background checks.
Yep.
Okay.
That is exactly,
Page.
without you having
Right.
been a part of it, it's like you were there.
Okay.
Anything else? Just one other thing I'd like to mention that came up in Monday's meeting, which is a suggestion that all parents or guardians of children be issued ID badges, which would not have the ability to open doors, but would be their ID badge. It's something that we're going to look into and see what that would entail and so forth. In addition to the Raptor.
As part of that, yeah.
Yeah.
We're
So
checking
that's something that we'll hear more about once we find out what the expense would be and so forth.
With the hospital.
Because one of the things that was talked about in terms of the school being a welcoming place, is this would be maybe part of that, would be.
You belong.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're just looking to see how that works with this particular system or what that needs to look like. So we're checking with the vendor on that. So more to come on that, but that we're still waiting because we're waiting for the money anyway. Right now. So the last three pieces are really part of the capital project. That's the entrance vestibules that will have opportunities for people to have comment and suggestions about. there's the security cameras upgrades. In case you were wondering, we have done all the background work on this, so we're gonna use some of it with the CAP project and some of it with the Smart Schools money. So we've taken a look already at where the Royal, we meaning Gary, has taken, and his team, have taken a look already at where some of the dead spots are around the district. So these would be the additional cameras we're going to be looking at placing as part of either Smart Schools money or part of the capital project. So we'd already talked about doing that anyway. This is in addition to other cameras that have to be replaced. So there's already a process in place for looking at that. And we also have been working with Eric on a vendor who would be a single vendor for all the cameras throughout the district for the whole system. And so that's something that we're working with Eric on as well. So we're looking at those additions and those upgrades. And then the last piece, which is already part of the CAP project, is the interior and exterior doors. And we're bantering about and discussing various ideas for doors, interior doors. We're looking. It doesn't cost you any money to explore things and to see what the possibilities are. So one of the possibilities we're looking at for the interior doors is, can we do a card swipe for an interior door as well? That helps keep the door locked. So we're looking at that. We don't know exactly what that expense would be, how that would fit into the capital improvement project or the $100,000 capital outlay projects, but we're exploring that. So more information will come back to you on that. When we are meeting, we're just bantering around ideas, and then we have the architect team go back and they find out all the details for us, which is really nice. So Eric's been great about working with Gary on those things. That's that section.
I don't have a question on that section, I have a general question. My general question slash comment is, these target dates, I think some of them are patches and some of them are final, if you follow them. But some of those dates are part of our final solution, and some of those dates are part of
our in progress solution.
Right.
Yeah, our patch, yes.
So I would really like us to get clarity on when are we going to have our go-forward plan. Understand plans change, right?
Right.
And we'll learn more through our safety committees that we establish and all that.
Yep.
But we should have a date that says, okay, this is when we're going live with our new plan. And we'll continue to upgrade our plan as we work.
Okay, this is really a plan in progress now.
Right.
So there isn't, I guess, how I put this together was these things are all, have been completed or are in play right now. So this is the plan that's live. What's missing from it? I guess maybe that's my question. Because all these things, yes, some are now, some are in the future, but they're all part of the plan right now. Maybe it's a progression issue. Or help me understand.
Okay, so my fear is, if we go back to East Hill, what's our final plan and when are we going to be there? So 1-in-1
Okay.
with K through 1 being this,
Okay.
2 being this, 3 being this,
I got
4
you.
through 5 being this. I mean, this has been going on since February of last year. I would really like us to say, okay, when school starts in September, we're on a new plan. And it's acting. Now, some of our capital stuff, I get it. So what's our temporary solutions to deal with the capital issues we don't have yet? That's okay. But we should have a plan that has all this together and says, okay, this is how we're moving forward. Because so far I'm not trying to be critical, this is the way it's unfolded, and I think
Correct.
we need to make sure we get it into okay, now we've unfolded this, and here's how we're going to operate on a permanent basis for safety in our district. And I think that needs to be a line in the sand that we say, okay, as of this date, this is what we're doing.
Okay,
I don't feel like we have that yet.
okay.
And I would really like us to say, the beginning of our next school year, we're going to have an entrance plan for our volunteers. And you follow what I'm saying? We don't really have that line in the sand that says this is when we're going to be operating. Is that
Okay.
making sense or not?
I think so. I think I get to what you're saying, because to me, like, this is a really living document, and so what you want is some more of the detail and some more of the endpoints around it. It doesn't give you the end picture.
I'm looking for the end picture and
Okay.
when we're doing it.
Yep.
And I get
Yeah,
that some of it might wind up being capital,
Right,
and
right,
we'll
right.
have to have workarounds for that.
Yeah.
I understand that,
Yep,
but
yep,
we
yep.
ought to be able to say, here's what our new safety plan is.
Here's what our aspiration is.
Yeah, here's what our new
Yeah.
plan
Yep.
is, and we're starting it on this day.
Yeah.
You know, because right now we've got, well, we did this fix, and I'm not being critical of those fixes.
No,
I'm
those are
really
things we
not.
had to do.
Right,
Mhm.
but we still have pieces of that, and I really don't want a patchwork quilt anymore, right? I want us to be able to say, okay, this is how we're gonna operate. I
So-
think we owe that to the district after this period of time.
So I think what we can do is take the building safety committees that are starting in the spring. We can frame a bigger plan around this with words and all those deadlines and all that good stuff, like all the pieces are there. But then we could run it through the building safety committees and they can help gel it, and then we could have the document, which is really what I think you want. I think you want the document that's the thing we do that we can say, here it is, all in
I
writing
think in
and
the
all.
end, we need that,
Yeah,
right? That
yep,
says, here's
yep,
how we operate.
Yep, it's an operational document. Okay, gotcha, yep. But that seems to make some sense to me then.
Yeah, I think
Okay.
in the end, that's what you need, right? To say,
Right.
here's how our school operates for this.
Yep.
on-
And I
on
really
this-
had
in
that
this regard.
as part of what the building safety committees would do to help make that happen. So if by the end of this school year, we could have that document ready to implement in September,
I would love that.
then why don't we set that as like the overall target
I
date?
think
to
that would
lift
be
it.
reasonable
Yep.
and something that we
Yep.
need to have.
Perfect, okay, I understand you now, thanks.
But I think at this point, it's a work in progress. 'cause
Oh,
we need to
absolutely.
have
I'm
it
not
in
being
front of-
critical.
No, I get what he's saying, it's
Yeah.
just like, how do you put it all together? I guess in
Exactly.
my head, what I keep thinking is, how do you put it together with a nice, pretty bow?
Yep.
That's the whole package.
Correct.
Okay, I got you. That's fine.
Okay, anything else? Okay, to be continued. Superintendent's goals.
Where am I? Okay, hold on, that's more, I swear to God I have these. So, I don't know where all my handouts went. Hold on here, sorry. Aha, they were in here.
all day.
We need a materials manager, so I think that's a position we need to have, somebody to handle all this stuff, because Patty and I have been losing things all day. So, right? So, here you go, here's the copy, in case you want to write on it. So as a result of our last conversation, I went back and did those revisions, some revisions, and I'm still finding stuff over there. They say technology is supposed to make things easier. I don't know. I feel like I'm carrying around more stuff. So, updated the first the goals around required plans to include the district-wide safety plan that we just discussed. Looked at the capital project goal to add in the ongoing community involvement. And there'll be community involvement in the design phase. Those are the things we talked about tonight. I just would like to remind everyone that when everything goes to state ed, that might be a little bit of a quieter time of community involvement because everything's sitting up in state ed. And then certainly once construction gets started or once the bidding process started, we also want to look at a communications plan that keeps people updated. Ben and I are working on a monthly update around what's happening with the capital project, either in word form or, Ben, he likes videos, so maybe some kind of video form. So that's what we're looking at, but to continue to look at community involvement with the capital project. Updated a goal around the vision, included a goal around collaborative work groups. So we already have a bunch of those going on in the district, but we want to make sure we were adding in the technology and healthcare.
What was healthcare?
That's our group that's looking at health and wellness within the district, including insurance plans, health plans, health activities. We recently had a wonderful presentation around telemedicine, which is an option with our insurance right now, so we're looking at doing that training for everybody in the district. That's what that group is. And then the last one was to look at the vision implementation, and we really wanted to focus that piece for right now on the connecting schools to the community, and that really is work with the principals and all the school staff to think about student-community connections, looking at in-school speakers, presentations, documentary films, summer internships and experiences, and then to look at ways with our buildings and our building staff, integrated learning in the areas of tolerance of others and diversity. So that was all the things that were on my notes that are now incorporated in this goal sheet.
Okay, questions or comments, or additions?
I think you did a great job capturing the last one from our conversation. I thought that was aptly done, so thank you.
Anything else?
I thought the board owed her prioritization of the first goal.
I'm sorry.
I think we might, for Debbie,
Yep.
I think it would be appropriate for us to prioritize the first goal that she has of required plans.
Oh, on different way plans.
Just in case there needs to be trade-offs made. I think that would be fair to you, to say, we think this is top on the list, and
Right, you're saying just prioritize.
Prioritize, yeah, because right now there things are just in straight
Yeah,
in
no, I know,
order as they.
I recognize
as
that,
they
but
came out of my brain.
I think we owe you that. That's what I think.
What I'd like to suggest, if we want to do that, if everyone is in agreement, that we should do that at the next meeting after having given it some thought.
Yeah, absolutely.
That'd be
That
fun.
would be-
We'll add it to the
We
next
can
board meeting.
adopt, if this is your wish, we can adopt the goal, this goal with that to be, be that,
The content's fine, the priority to be determined at the next meeting.
thank you.
We can take the draft.
That's just my suggestion from reading it. If I was on her end, I think that would be fair.
Sure. All assistance is appreciated.
All right, so with that, I guess we can take that as a motion to approve the, we do that now?
I don't think you have to.
Approve it?
No, you don't. No, you don't have to approve the goals. You just have to say you can take the draft off. Because then that makes them real.
All right, so we'll just continue the discussion at the next meeting in terms of prioritizing the first item. Okay? All right, thank you.
Find out what.
Okay, the next item on the agenda is the capital, oh, that's done. Okay, is there any new business that anyone has to bring up? Old business. How long have you got to?
Yep. So one of the pieces of old business was a question around extracurricular transportation costs. There is a board policy, it's attached, it's policy 7410, which states the board shall support these activities within the financial means of the district. My understanding is that over many years that this has not included transportation for extracurricular events. However, the board, because it is a board policy, has the latitude to amend or revise the policy. So what I provided to you is a summary of the amount of club/extracurricular activities, the total amount that has been spent on transportation for the past 2 years. In 15-16, it was a little over $3,000. In 16-17, it was a little over $1,000. The determining factor in the amount of money is simply whether or not clubs choose to participate in activities that require transportation. The only consistency in the extracurricular fund accounts that were provided to me by both Mrs. Schaefer and Ms. Gleason and Mrs. Pamkowski is the prom and the senior class trip. So I also just put a note that the board could make a decision to fund extracurricular transportation trips as an addition to the budget Policy 7410 should be reviewed, and then appropriate regulations developed to delineate if there's any specific parameters just around that.
What type
And
of
what that transportation, extracurricular transportation support might look like, so that our extracurricular club advisors have an understanding about how that might work, should the board choose to do that. So that's what we've learned, and that's where we are with that.
Questions, comments?
Is this separate from the athletics?
Yes, it is separate from athletics.
Any other questions? I just have one question. Mrs. Fields asked a question about the band and music, trips that take place. Does this transportation cost include the music, transportation?
For band trips?
For extracurricular, the band trips are considered extracurricular, so they do fundraise for their transportation.
But is it, it's
Okay,
in
but
these
I was
numbers.
just asking, is that, this is what has been spent. I'm asking, is that included in this spend?
Do you have, did you bring your stuff? I thought I had my stuff. But
You have some information
more
on it?
papers.
Well,
This is what was given to me by Mrs. Pankowski.
I feel that band is part of the curriculum, and it's part of my curriculum every other year, taking the students to other locations and competitions to play in. And I'm very grateful for that opportunity of being able to take the kids on that trip. Normally, we do pay for our own transportation. When we take the bus, like the coach buses, we pay for that because we choose to use the coach buses. However, we did in 2013 go to Disney. We used the school buses to go to the airport, where we were charged $1,100, I think. Is it possible for us to go back and see that far back?
Yeah, we have it. I just can't find it. I have it.
But the other thing is, we also get hit with charges that we are unaware of. For example, I got charged $125 for the school district to inspect the buses that we took on our band trip that we had already paid for. I had no idea that I was going to be charged $125, nor did the senior class have any idea that they were going to be charged for, I think there was an inspection for the prom, excuse me, I believe it was for the prom, there was an inspection. That
And that
was,
is-
we had no idea that that was going to happen.
So I think what you were asking, Mark, was whether the band trip was in these numbers that we're looking at, right?
So,
I think we could all say it's something we certainly want to consider, but we want to know what would, we really have a big idea of what we're considering.
I would also want us to take a look at, and I haven't looked at it, at the advisor manual, the manual that we wrote for advisors a few years ago as a result of the audit, to see what information is in there about what club advisors should expect for different things. Maybe it's in there, maybe it's not, but if it's not, something certainly we could add, so that that's clear that in the club advisor manual,
Agreed.
where those charges are, and I just would have to dig that out tomorrow.
Agreed, but I'll reiterate that once again, band is not extracurricular. It is a subject, and it is not a club.
In these instances, did the whole band go? Like you mentioned Disney, I wasn't here for that. Did
Right.
everybody go? Or just a group of
Nearly
students?
100%. I mean, it's impossible to get 100% all the time. Some kids just choose not to go. But we make every kid able to go. You know, I get sponsors.
No, I know what you did this time around, but I
Always.
wasn't here for Disney, so
Yeah,
I
we
wasn't
always do
aware.
that, always.
Just to make it clear, the board's position on any trips of this type, including prom or
Right.
senior trip, is that we will not approve anything unless no student is prevented from going for financial reasons.
Oh, great, yeah, absolutely.
So, I think this is a small amount of money compared to our budget. And I know that we're not sure what's in these numbers.
I found it, because I actually put it in my notebook where I could have easy access to it. So in 16, 17, it was the prom, there was a senior bus trip, and then NADA Club went to Destiny USA. There were 3 trips then. Because Mrs. Pankowski did give me good information. I just couldn't find it, Laura. There was the problem.
And what was the cost?
The cost of those in 16-17 was the $1,117.61. In 15-16, the Athletic Association took a trip to Syracuse. Boys basketball took a trip to a Syracuse basketball game. There was a ski club took a trip. The charge was the bus check. That's why I want to check it out, because there are some DOT rules around that. And then there was the school buses for the senior trip for the class of 2000, and that was the $3,315.82 charge that year.
Okay, so the band trip is not in there.
Because the band trip was,
It was the year prior.
it was year prior. So we would have to go back one more year.
Oh, it was 14.
13.
How much was it? Do you have a ballpark
Laura-
idea of what it was?
About $1,100.
$1,100?
Laura, can you get me that information? I knew you could, thank you. You probably have it right at your fingertips. So we'll get that information to go back that way.
Where'd you go last?
Last year we went to Virginia.
So
We took brown buses, which we paid for.
What's that?
Which we paid for.
They took brown
And we
buses.
expect to pay for it because it's, we take the coach buses, right? But what I wasn't prepared for was the $125 bill for the inspection
Right.
by the bus garage.
So I'm confused. Wouldn't that have been paid under a club for transportation?
Well, it doesn't,
Isn't that how it got paid? I'm not questioning whether it's right or wrong.
Right.
Is that how the funds went through?
We have a student account.
they have a
which-
student account, right?
Right.
So it's not under the club
Not
line?
under a club, no.
Okay. So that's
But
what
it
I was
would
trying
be.
to clarify
Right.
earlier.
The student account is the club.
Yeah.
Harold gives me the numbers, he says, can you please charge so-and-so this amount, and I type it up, I give it to the club, I give it to Laura. That's what happens, and then the clubs pay the invoice.
So the
Back to
student
the
account
school.
is the club account?
Not yet.
Yeah.
Okay, so then last year we should have the trip to Virginia,
The bus,
but it's not listed.
it's not listed, the bus, it is not listed. Nope. Which means it didn't get paid for then out of the account. All right, we'll find out where that got paid.
But it was,
Definitely
but,
somebody-
but,
but there was
it
a
was about
charge.
$1,100, more or less.
But that was in 2013. That was to the airport and back
to
because
check the
school
bus.
buses.
Right,
The
Right.
DOT rules,
The
the
DOT
our
rules.
transportation department has to check any buses that come
right, and that's,
with our students.
How much was the bus charge?
125.
Not the 125, how much was the bus charge for the rental on the trip to Virginia?
I would have to contact the company to see how it's broken down because I'm giving one lump sum.
What was the lump?
It was about $26,000.
Oh, you mean for the whole trip?
Yeah, we pay a fee up front for everything, the hotel, transportation. So I'm not sure exactly what the breakdown of that is.
I would just suggest, I know I heard you say, Mr. Ferguson, that it doesn't seem like a lot of money in terms of the big picture, which I agree with. But if you say now all clubs, which is what, if you decide have free transportation or that the district's no longer gonna charge, it may change the willingness with which people decide to take those trips, because sometimes they do like every other year or things like that in order to compensate for those charges. So I would just say that that's something that you need to think about when you decide how you wanna break it down. So we have a number of different clubs. For example, if you think about ski club, who goes, maybe a couple of times during the winter to the slopes, which might be different than say a NADA that goes every other year. So whether or not you wanna think about clubs getting a certain amount allocated to them per year, or you wanna say clubs in general student activities in general get this amount per year, and we can decide how that's then divvied up. I just would say, think about it in the sense of whatever is here is just one small slice of what potentially it could be in terms of thinking about, open transportation. Does that make sense?
I'd like to make a comment too, just kind of to piggyback on what everybody's saying, but I just want to clarify, because I think I agree with exactly what Mr. Field is saying, is that, the band, the orchestra, the music is not above. They take the class during school. It's just an extension of the class, not like other things that are happening. So, but I also agree with what you're saying, that you got to be mindful. You can't just open up the floodgates. But I think this is worthy of discussion. Maybe we're not going to solve anything right now, but specifically to the music department, I concur. That we really need to look at that as not being an extracurricular, unless I'm missing something. I don't think I am.
I would like to make a suggestion. I don't think we can get to a number right now, because we don't have the data to be able to do that.
We have 2 years worth. Yeah.
Well, but the transportation for the band trip isn't in these numbers. The 125 that's not what I'm trying to get at. I'm trying to get at, what did it cost for the bus?
For anybody,
For the band trip?
right, because we have,
Specific.
okay, specific, okay.
Because
But that's a different account.
correct, it came out of a different account, so there's some numbers that aren't in these, is what I'm trying to get at. So I don't think these are good numbers for us to base a number off of. And I think we would need to flesh that out. But my suggestion would be that we put aside a certain amount in our budget that says this is for club transportation on an annual basis, and the club fund needs to figure out how that gets allocated based on what's happening. Maybe that process from the clubs becomes they have to put in a request, and whether that's every year or every other year determines how much they get for it or whatever. But I think there ought to be some mechanism that we set aside in our financial budget that says, okay, we understand these are extracurricular things that we value, and we as a school budget is going to cover X amount of money toward that. That's what I would suggest we try to get to. I think that's clean, it's easy, but it shows importance placed on this type of activity for our students. And I think we'll have to figure out what that number should be, but I think that would be an easy way to do it.
Well, first, let me just ask, unless there's any more discussion at this point, is it the sense of the board that we would like to favorably consider, this concept, and with the details to be worked out, which would include not only extracurricular but also band trips,
Absolutely.
or music trips.
Class trips.
Absolutely, I think I would definitely like to see this considered and more discussion with details hashed out.
So are we saying music trips, class trips, club trips, further down the line, or are we
Well, I mean, that's,
music trip every other year that we would want to support?
I think we need some more data too before we, are we talking school buses, are we talking coach, are we talking airplanes? So it's possible. I don't.
Change plans and all of it.
I think maybe the first thing to do, and I hate to push it back on policy all the time, but look at the policy first.
The policy is clear that we support it.
I think
To the
really,
extent the financially can, so it's
Right.
pretty broad.
This is a budget issue, it's
It's
not a
an
policy
interpretation.
issue.
so I would like to suggest, if this is agreeable, that the Transportation Committee consider this in terms of expenses and come back to the board with a proposal that would give guidelines, and, make it concrete, make the proposal concrete, so that we can really look at it and then we can discuss whether we make a decision. Does that seem reasonable?
Those trainings?
Because I think what Ms. Gleason,
Yeah, I'm transportation.
Yeah, you're trans, you guys.
I think what Ms. Gleason says, you know, certainly needs to be part of the consideration, but I think we need some mechanism to make, you know, we need to be more concrete so we can really consider it and make a decision. Although I think the sense of the body that I'm getting is that we're in favor of it, it's just a question of what is it,
Right,
Yeah,
exactly.
okay? So is that agreeable?
sure.
Transportation Committee, are you agreeable?
We don't have any of that data.
Not that we know.
Oh, but I mean, that, you
Yes.
get it.
Because that's not, no, it's not transportation data,
Oh,
that's
so
the
then who
point.
should do this? Do you want to be volunteers?
No, if you want to give it to our committee, I'm willing to accept the action,
Okay,
but we don't own the data.
right, well, that's what we would have
And
to.
we'd have to involve some other people. We'd have to
Absolutely.
involve Ms. Gleason, Mrs. Pankowski, we'd have to involve some other folks who work with that.
Correct. Because the
information. And Mr. Walker.
transportation,
And Mr. Walker.
the transportation people don't own the data.
Right, and Leah and Mr. Walker. So there's a little group that could do this work,
Right.
that we could get the data from, yeah. Okay.
So I'm happy owning it,
Okay,
but we, the people that are normally at the transportation committee,
okay.
don't have this information.
I'm just trying to turf it to somebody.
Yeah.
Were you willing to take it?
We are willing to accept it.
Oh,
Okay.
excellent.
We need to know who should be meeting with us for that meeting.
Yes, I can tell you who all those people are. Harold and Leah and Becky and Laura. So those are all the people who currently work
And we're gonna
with
need
that
numbers from wherever the band, whatever
Yep,
budget
wherever we-
the
wherever we
band
can-
and
wherever that's
chorus
from.
or whatever is
Yep.
rolling up to as well.
stuff. Okay.
Thank you. Sorry.
Mark, I
Oh,
just
no.
had, Mark, I just had one quick question. The middle school science club went to New York City, but I didn't hear that under the, did they pay for their own bus?
But they're not a high school extracurricular activity, so
Oh,
they
so
would,
it's just high school, so,
they have their own fund.
okay.
Yeah.
So they paid for their own buses?
I don't know, I would
Okay.
check with the middle school, I can
Alright.
check with the middle school on that.
Will they be
We can find that
included in that, like
I
if
think it should
the
be
science
considered.
club
Yeah.
extracurricular
out.
activities?
Can you find that out?
So it wouldn't
Thank you.
just be high school?
Okay, anything else on this? Okay, very good. Next point is the yearbook senior picture sitting fees.
So this was another question that came up. Mrs. Conley was very helpful in providing me the information about what the sitting fees have been for the past couple of years. So what I did was just look at the sitting fees. They've been the same in 15-16, 17-18. They rose a little bit. So starting with this year's senior class, I just looked at projecting out what a cost might be and then inflated the cost or added the cost per the schedule it looked like the trend had been. So as you can see, based on our current enrollment, and again, those enrollment numbers can change, there's what the cost is for the sitting fee, and right now the class of 2019 at 77 students has the largest enrollment of upcoming classes.
So what will be the current sitting fee? Is that what
That's wait, into it, there you go.
Okay.
So I put all the data there for you, so you can see what that cost is. And right now, students or supporters of students help make sure that fee is paid. So if there's a student who wants to have their picture taken and finances are an issue, it is not an issue. We take care of that. There are some nice benefactors around.
Any questions?
I have a question. Are we contracted out with a certain company that makes sure that we have to use?
My
This certain-
understanding,
is that- I don't know.
Tim
right,
Tim
and my
Schaefer does it.
understanding is historically, it's been a little bit of a trade-off. He does a lot of the pictures at events and things like that go for the yearbook, and all of the seniors go there to have their pictures done.
Is that the place in Fort Pine?
Yes.
Is it required? Do they have to go there? Can they go somewhere else? Or is it?
I think it's a little bit of a process, Chris, if you choose to go someplace else, because the push to go to the one place is then everything happens between
Sure.
the photographer and us, as opposed to if you were to venture someplace else, I think you'd have to then figure out how they get it, make sure it's in line with what the requirements are and all those kinds of things.
I don't believe there's a choice.
Yeah.
I mean,
think
I think someone did it in the past, but again, it was that, and maybe they had a family friend or something that was a photographer. It stayed in my head from last year, so I don't remember all the details, but then it had to be aligned with what everything else was.
Mostly everybody uses Mr. Schaefer and those photography services.
Yeah.
So I really don't know that
It's
it's a
something on
choice.
In order for it to be in your book, I have to go through Mr. Schaefer. They don't-
Yeah, I don't know, I mean, in several years I'll be there, but I'm just thinking, you know, and so
Won't be my problem.
No, and I'm just asking questions that, I don't know,
No, but
you know, I know I know if you go for family pictures or whatever, it's not inexpensive when you go to a professional. This doesn't even include any kind of packages the students
Correct.
might want, which
Right.
that means if they're going to get their senior pictures for the sitting fee, they're paying for that, they might not even be able to afford
Correct.
any package there, which
We've never
means
bought them.
they can't get them, you know, so maybe, I don't wanna put anyone out of a job, I'm just saying, have we explored other options, you know, and I don't wanna open up a can of worms, but I think, I'm assuming it's probably somewhat pricey for, especially a lot of our students who are on free and reduced lunch. I know that we talked about, you know, well, if a student needs a sitting fee, you know, maybe a benefactor will pay for it, but it's not only that, it's what happens after that. Like I want a 8x10, I want to give something to grandma and grandpa and aunts and uncles, and just like it's not happening because we just can't afford that.
I made the same suggestion early on because I said, there's other options and it's that competition that will usually get you better rates for the students.
Yeah.
And then they typically make the money off the package. But I think because the history of it is he comes and does a lot of pictures throughout the course of the year,
Yeah.
that's sort of been the trade-off. But, you know, that's not on the kids' end. That's on the end of the school getting pictures for the yearbook. So that's, you know.
Is that something the yearbook committee or the seniors need to discuss, maybe at the beginning of the year? I mean, or maybe at their junior year,
right.
maybe they do it their junior year.
It would have to be.
You know, maybe they make a decision, but again, I'm, just thoughts, I don't know where this will go, but I just think that.
If I could just interject for 1 second, living
No,
20 miles
sorry.
away. Thank you. In Little Falls, same situation, a photographer who does a lot of the pictures for the school, also does a lot of the senior pictures, though he's not the only person who does it. His sitting fee for one 8x10 and a sitting fee is $125. So that's for one picture. So a $27 to $29 sitting fee is an amazing price.
Yeah, see, I don't know these things, so.
Our family photographer starts at $150 that we use, and that's for just digital rights, no pictures. That's a really excellent price structure.
But I just went through this, and you don't get a picture, you don't get digital rights. It's
Yeah, you
just
get
the
nothing.
fact that your picture gets in the yearbook. That's it. They give you the grove, they take several, you pick one.
Yep.
Pose,
You're
and
paying
that's
for
what's
it.
in the yearbook. You don't get a release, you don't get, I had to pay $189 just because I wanted an 8x10, so.
My question on this is, it says the yearbook is considered an extracurricular activity. The yearbook committee is. I don't understand how pictures is an extracurricular activity. That's confusing to me. My senior pictures are not an extracurricular activity.
The yearbook, so I.
The creation of
the yearbook.
The yearbook
It's
is
the-
the extra.
Is the point, but the pictures are not, the create, but where the club status, it's about the status piece, is just, again, the board can choose to do whatever the board wants to do, the pictures are just part of the creation of the yearbook.
So maybe part of what we want to do, I know the question was, what is the sitting fee? But based on what Carol Ann is saying, maybe what we want to do in part is find out what comes after that. So even if we covered the sitting fee, which would mean that every student, without question, always, and we do sometimes have students who don't want it, which is their choice too, but every kid would have the option of doing it at no fee. Can they then afford pictures?
No.
From this particular, so that's, I think that's an important part of the equation. Because paying for the sitting fee then really just means you get to be in the yearbook.
With your formal, it's a formal.
With your formal, right.
The rest of it, the casual that you wanna put on your page, can come from your phone, can come from
Right.
scanning it.
Right.
It's just that formal pose, you don't get the rights to. And I wonder what the cost to the rights for that. Even though I bought a package, I'm not so sure I have the rights to go to Walmart and make prints of it.
Oh, and
Because I don't have a release.
if it's tagged,
Right,
no,
I don't
right.
have a release of that, even though I bought a package.
No.
But so
Where
I
I
think
went
that's
some-
the next step. How do we find out? So if
I
I
did go
have
to
just my
somebody
formal
else.
picture done,
And she gave me the rights
and the
with my
sitting fee is
package.
covered, how much would it take me to get an 8x10 for my
Ten.
house, or wallet size for my grandmother, or whatever it happens to be?
But see, I think that's a different question then.
Right.
Because that's no different than buying pictures of graduation or buying pictures of whatever. Fill in the blank of any school activity. And none of that is free. It's all, you buy a package or you don't buy a package. The sitting fee, because it's, a student can't be in the yearbook without going there and paying this $29, I think that's the issue, that's a board issue.
Okay.
Any other thoughts?
I just know I can say I'm chief editor of the yearbook actually, so Mrs. Conley really did want to hear about this, so if anything needs to be spread to Miss Conley, I can do that.
Yeah, I totally talked to her tomorrow too, so dude, you go ahead, because you'll probably see her before me.
I don't know.
No, trust me, you probably will.
If there are no other thoughts, are there any motions that anyone would like to make?
I have another question.
Yeah.
I was wondering if anybody knew, about how many seniors, the percentage of seniors who purchase the yearbook.
We can ask Mrs. Conley, Mrs. Allen, or do you know, Jenny, do you know that answer?
It really depends on, because some people buy them online, some people, it is really depending on like when people buy them, because some people choose to wait till the end of the year and pay, a bigger fee to get the yearbook, just like extra ones we have laying around, so it really depends.
I think that's something we can ask.
Right, so we
Mrs.
might not
Allen.
know a student who walks up that last and
Right.
just
Yeah.
says, here's the
Yeah,
money.
here's the money.
But you could do the percentage of kids who pre-order.
Yeah, there's like the pre-order, it really depends on like how people are buying things and when, and yeah, pretty much.
And I was just wondering about seniors specifically.
How many seniors buy the yearbook?
Yeah, that would be an interesting thing. I mean, if we have the majority of students buying the yearbook, then I would say that maybe, that everybody gets included in the yearbook.
Danielle, is that something you think that the yearbook committee would have access to that information? Or
Oh,
is that
yeah.
something, could you work on that?
Yeah.
Is that something you could do?
Yeah. I
With
just gotta-
Mrs. Conley and Mrs. Allen, that would be really helpful.
I just gotta make a note to myself, or I will forget.
Oh.
Have there been
Your brain
convers-
is young.
Have there been conversations with the yearbook committee about this at all?
Not really, we're just really focused on right now just making the yearbook, because there's a very short amount of time to try and get this thing done, so
Two scrambles.
that's really what our focus is right now.
Do we have student photographers for yearbook pictures?
I do a lot of like photography at like everything.
Like the candids.
Yeah, like I do a lot of the candids and stuff. I know a lot of people just go like right off their phones and do stuff like that. Really just whoever wants to do it that's in the club, and even people outside of the club. Like I know CSI has been involved in the past in getting pictures from events. So really we don't have any like set people who do it. It's just anyone who's in the club that likes to take pictures can do it. So
They also have a drive. On the P drive, there is a yearbook folder. So like if I go to sporting events, if I take pictures, I'll
People can
drop them in
contribute.
there and I'll just let Ms. Conley and Ms. Van Walt know. Like this weekend with the winter ball, I told them to reach out to some of the chaperones. The chaperones can take pictures with our cameras, and then and the kids. Just tell them to send it to the Canto Black and Gold, and it gets in there.
I have one other question. do we have an idea of what percentage of students get assistance for this?
I think.
Bless you, Bless.
Yes, I think we could make a reasonable guess based on who people are who will support it.
10%? 20%?
1%, 2%,
Probably more like
5% maybe?
Again, it depends because.
It depends.
Like,
I know that's gonna vary.
each person knows the
Right.
kid, and the reality is some students won't say anything.
Yeah.
I get a list of kids who haven't done it yet, and I go to each of them and say, and some of them are comfortable enough with me to say, I can't do it, and I'm like, we got it. Other kids might not say it to me, and then might go to somebody else and say it, and they help them out. So
we can really.
it's hard to pinpoint it per se, because they get the resources from different.
So let me ask that differently then. The list, when you get pretty far along the list of people that haven't done it, what percentage of the class is that?
I wanna say the first list I got this time around probably had 7 or 8 people on it, so
About 10%.
10%. But some of that was, you know, just not
Procrastinating.
make my can't do it, right,
Teenager.
right, right.
So how do we want to proceed on this?
I would suggest maybe giving it back to the yearbook to see if, or junior class, and find out if they have any say in it. I mean, I don't want to make this, if they're perfectly fine and everyone's fine, then why would we want to try and fix something that's not broken? I just think that it might be worthy to kind of look at a little bit more. And maybe it's not, but I've worked at places where we have a photographer come in, they have all the codes, and the kids just process right through it, kind of like elementary school, bam, 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 and it's done within, you know, an hour, and all the kids are done. We say, hey, it's senior picture day, and it was, I can't recall the price, but I don't think it was anywhere near this. Again, I'm just talking about options, and I think there may be other options, but again, if it's not broken, I don't want to fix it. If people are happy with it, then.
Could we set up something with Mr. Schaefer to come in one day, do all the kids, a discounted rate, you know, not $27 a student, and everybody is done, all in one shot, and everybody's in the yearbook? Is that something to look into?
I think if we did that, it would be more likely that he would come here.
Right,
Right.
exactly.
Right, and we would
I mean,
set
I
it
went
up
to
like
Colony
that.
High, 900 students, and we were in the
Process
gym,
through.
putting on the drapes, and we were done.
Ours were held in the student council room.
Yeah.
Everybody went through in a line.
A little
Yeah.
hair studio off to the side,
Yeah.
who's doing hair.
Well,
Yeah, I mean, that's all, it was the yearbook picture.
Right. the yearbook
But anyone who
pictures.
wanted anything more, then
Then you could order a package.
do your own thing.
your own thing.
But it was just kind of like, you know how it is in elementary
Yeah.
school,
Yeah.
middle school, you just pop yourself, sit down, tilt your head and click. Oh, that didn't work out, your eyes were closed, click, that was good, there you go. And it just was an assembly line.
We could have that conversation with the yearbook advisors, and then they could have it with the committee and see just what that idea might be. At least ask the question, it doesn't cost anything or anything to ask the question
Yeah.
and explore the options.
And I think going back to the yearbook club to at least assess how prevalent is this is reasonable for us to try to do.
Danielle, may I ask, what's your deadline for production? Is it coming up soon?
Extremely soon.
Yes,
like
okay,
March
so we
soon.
may, okay, so,
We can use existing process to solve whatever
Yeah.
issues we have
Yeah.
this year.
we
This
can,
is-
yeah. Well, this is for the future, so we'll just see. I just want to make sure if we were going to ask them for some thinking time and some viewing time.
You can wait till they're done.
Yeah, it's not in the middle of production. when everybody's- Yeah, everything's done for
And if
this
there's
year.
anybody who wants.
I would want to get post-production conversation going.
Oh yeah, as soon as it's done, we literally have all the time in the world.
There
so.
you go, okay, thank you, that's why I was asking you about the timing, thanks.
Yeah, right now would not be a good time.
All
Okay.
right, so what we will do is ask for some possible alternatives and costs. And once we know that, then we can have a further discussion and decide what, if anything, we would like to do in terms of supporting this. Is that correct? Okay.
Do it after
March, after they're done with production. Yep.
Okay, so you ready to move on?
Yes.
Okay, one-on-one computing.
Yep. You have the time the district technology committee met and developed a calendar for a Smart Schools investment plan to support a one-to-one initiative. And there it is. There's the calendar. So in this month and next month, we're working on the plan. People are great on the committee. We have a shared Google space. People have been really great about finding information, putting information in the space so we can all review it together. It is the technology committee's intention that at the March 8th meeting, we would come back with a revised preliminary plan. If you remember, there was a preliminary plan, but this will be a revised preliminary plan just for the one-to-one initiative. And then the pieces that follow from March to May are the pieces that are part of the Smart Schools investment plan process. So that's all of that other language is the things that have to happen as part of the Smart Schools process. So just to remind everyone, the board has to approve a preliminary plan, then the plan is posted on the website for 30 days. There has to be a public hearing. We thought perhaps it could be connected to the April 11th board meeting. The board gives the final approval to the plan. If there are no revisions, then the plan is submitted to SED. If there are revisions, then you come back in May with the revisions based on the public comment, and then it's submitted to SED. And at the same time, because things sit in SED for a little bit, for a while, so we get the part one done, and while the plan is sitting at SED waiting to be implemented or waiting to be approved, then you can look at continuing the work on the structure, the policies, and the procedures. We've already started to have some general conversations about that, and an implementation plan, including professional development and ongoing tech integration support. So that piece would happen while the plan is sitting at SED for approval. We look for the completion of, in addition to this, our current technology plan is going to be up for revision. The new round is 2018 to 2021. They do a 3-year plan. I just got some information the other day about what that plan all has to include. The due date is October 6th. So we'll work on that while we're waiting SED approval of the Smart Schools plan. And then prepare the purchase orders and everything in advance so that as soon as we get the plan approval, we can go ahead and purchase the computers. Remember, this is a reimbursement program, so we don't have to wait for the money. We don't need to wait for money. You have to expend the money up front, and then you get reimbursed the district within 90 days. There's also a piece of this that the committee talked about that I think is worth mentioning. This is the one-to-one piece, but that's not going to be everything that every student needs. So we will still need to have some laptops, some iPads, some other computers for student use. Depending upon the need of the course, depending upon the need of what the students have. So there will still be those things available. Also included in this, which we talked about, we just mentioned, and we're doing some more exploration, is what happens if a student does not have access at home to wireless or to an internet, and how will the instructional tech committee kind of come up with some ideas around how we manage that. That cannot be part of the Smart Schools money. That would have to be things that would be part of the district budget. So all those things are
Would that be
important.
matchable aid if we paid for?
Under, matchable aid under what?
From a state aid
Yeah, no.
Any other questions, comments?
So this was shared with the board just a couple of weeks ago. I had shared this with you after the last tech meeting.
And with the last thing for the fall of 2018, that every student has a device for instructional use, that would be Chromebook.
Well, we have all of our Chromebook carts are here. People are piloting them because that's new. We already have laptops. We already have some iPads in use. So the Chromebook carts are here. So people are trying them out, and then we're going to get some feedback just on what we think, how those are working or not working.
So what the one-to-one will be is still to be determined.
I think so.
Okay.
We're phasing this in with a certain grade level, and then every year, or how is this working? They're all getting them, which grades?
All at once. K-12.
K-12.
And so how it works and what the committee has talked about in terms of what some other districts have done is at the youngest levels, you really get a classroom set and they pretty much stay in the classroom.
Okay.
Then for the older students, that those are more transportable. So one of the other things we have to think about is the replacement, what happens if they broke, the cases, we talked about that. So people on the committee are doing all that work to find out all that information. So in our shared Google Workspace, people have been really great about finding things and putting things in there. And so we are going to have a lot of good information to make some decisions from.
So we will get an update once some of those, some of that is available.
I would, yes, yeah. Well, certainly by March. I would say in February you can have another update because we'll be in the process then.
So first, I'd like to say thank you. I think this timeline looks really good at getting us where we're going to go. Second question, do we have any idea what approval time runs on this type of thing that we'd be submitting?
An SED?
Yeah.
The approval.
Is this like a 9-month?
No,
thing
it's not
over
like
there?
a CAP project, but it is 3 to 6 months right now.
3 to 6?
Yeah, 3 to 6.
Do we have any idea of the disapproval rate in case the timelines gets out of sync?
Yes, no, because while the whole SSIP, while the whole Smart Schools bond allocation is a little over $1 million, hardware application for students is one of the clearly permitted costs, and we're only going to be asking for that part.
So our
So
odds of getting
our odds
accepted
are
is 99%.
very extremely high, yes.
Okay. Has the committee looked at curriculum impact, learning management type of
No,
impact?
that's the work that has to be done
Okay.
in conjunction with the application piece.
Okay, because
Yep.
that's going to have to circle back,
Yes.
and summer's in the middle of that. That's why I was
Yep,
asking.
there might be an opportunity there.
And then the last question I had was, have we looked at literacy tools that we might need for some of our students and compatibility with whatever we're doing? Because that might be important, like e-reader, highlighting capability for some learning skills and things like that.
That can, Chris, you know about that.
Actually, last year I was in a one-to-one environment
Yeah,
at
he was in that
Gloversville.
environment.
A lot of those things are actually scalable by the number of subscriptions you want. Essentially, they're downloadable apps into Google. Some of them are free to use with basic functions. Some of the others that have expanded function. I'm trying to think of the one that we used last year, but essentially there's functions where as you highlight key parts of the phrase, it actually will pull it out and put it on another document.
So those are-
Voice to
yes,
text,
I
things
know
like that.
I know there's tools like that. I just want to make sure
Yep.
that we're putting that on this list, because some of our students are going to need that stuff.
Absolutely. And we're also looking at some of the other applications that elementary uses and how all those things will work. Chris is on the committee, Cece's on the committee, Tracy's on the committee with us, so we've got a lot of folks who have some good knowledge. Special education also has Jen bought out of the special ed grant money an additional 15 Chromebooks, and that, I guess you, Carolyn, right, you guys had a little training the other day.
Well, we started to, but
They started
then,
to look
yeah,
at
we,
identifying
them and labeling them
Right.
correctly
So
so
they're gonna
that,
have some direct experience then
Yeah.
that they can share back as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I just want to make one comment. This might sound negative, but it's not really intended to be that way. But if you're buying roughly, I don't know, I'll just say 700 devices, what is their longevity? So say they all crash in a span of 5 or 6 years, then you got to replace
Exactly.
700 at the same time. I'm sure the tech committee has kind of talked about this, but maybe, it just makes possible sense to phase in, and that way you're on a plan every 4 or 5 years where you're continually updating 70 or 80, whatever the graduating class is. You retire those, and then I'm just looking at the viability of having to replace things.
Sustainability.
Yeah, the sustainability is the word I'm looking for, yeah.
The
Does that make sense? I don't want to sound negative.
No, the tech committee started to have those conversations about how that replacement could work and does work. Other entities that are already in a one-to-one environment, if they have gone all district-wide or all building-wide, then they also have figured out how to replace those on a regular basis. They're not all gonna go at once.
No, they're not.
But you do have to look at how you retire, and briefly that conversation at our last tech meeting, how you retire some of them to replace them.
Yeah.
So that's gonna be a piece of this
Good,
as well.
good. This is exciting, so.
This group is,
really-
I gotta
yeah,
tell you, this
thank
group is
you.
really hard.
This is great,
Yes.
great stuff.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask Chris, do you have any experience with that, or in terms of your?
Essentially, you also have to kind of factor in the attrition rate through incidental damage and
Right.
purposeful damage as well. I believe Gloversville tried to replace 1/5 of their Chromebooks every year, between attrition and then those that over time are gonna slowly stop working. Cost comparison, Chromebook versus laptop, I mean, you're literally talking a 1/3 of the cost for comparable processor in most cases. So you are getting a lot of bang for your buck, so to speak, but that's something we'd have to iron out, but you're probably talking somewhere in the neighborhoods of buying 150-ish units every year after rollout to kind of keep phasing them through. In reality, the first probably 2 or 3 years, you probably wouldn't have to worry about quite that number, but starting in year 2 or 3, you probably start looking to cycle in about 150 a year.
Is there any reimbursement capability for the replenishment or no?
That could be part of the smart school, it could come from a couple of different funding streams. It could be another smart schools investment plan for replacement. We could also look at using our state aided hardware and software line. So there are, and then we have, quite honestly, right now, we have a regular replacement cycle for the lab computers. So it would just become another replacement cycle.
Anything else on that?
Thank you.
Okay, do I have a motion to go into exec?
I make motion.
All in favor? I have a point.
I'm sorry,
I have a point.
Okay, sorry.
I made the motion.
Okay, all in favor?
Seconded. Yeah.
So we'll have a 5-minute recess.
There was no documented, right?
I know, I just have something.
No, we were.
Yeah, no, there
We
wasn't.
couldn't find anything.
Yeah, no, there wasn't, no.